Howdy, ho ho ho, my good humans. Are you ready for a far too early game of the year prediction episode? As we have before you today, Loon and I shall stand in prediction. That's all I got for the ceremonious horse shit. We're gonna be predicting way too early what's gonna win game of the year. Loon, how are you feeling about this, my friend?
Um, I don't know when because obviously we'll have a gameplay running is what we always try to do. So I had to go and grab all the trailers for all the games. I don't know how you feel, but when I was actually going through and grabbing them trailers, it feels like a weaker year than I thought. I don't know if you align with that. I don't know, like I'm not saying it's going to be like a 2014, but I think it's weaker than because like when I was expressing like with Mafia and just being worried about that, Ghost of Yotei doesn't do anything for me. Avowed has kind
Okay,
of
so
burned
you for
me.
you
For me
personally.
personally, yeah.
Okay, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's always so hard to because like for me personally, 2025 is already better than 2024 just with the games I've played so far. But like I think overall this is a year that's going to be on par with like 2023, 2004, 2007, 2001. But that's the weird thing where like people don't look at 2019 that way. People don't look at 2019 as like an all-time great year for gaming, but for me, 2019 personally was an all-time great year. RE2 and Jedi Fallen Order and Judgment and Outer Worlds and Greedfall and just games I loved.
Hmm.
But I understand a lot of people didn't play Judgment. A lot of people didn't play Greedfall. A lot of people didn't play the classic known as The Sinking City or the classic known as Days Gone. But I loved those games. So it's like that's one of those all-time great years for me. But I understand it's not an all-time great year for most people. I think this is going to be one of those all-time great years for most people. Right there with your 2020 or 2023s and 07s and 04s.
Yeah, and we should obviously also clarify, even though our names are tied to it, this isn't our personals. This is what we're
Yeah.
predicting is going to be when we get to the game of the year, or when the game awards happens. This will be the final six,
Yeah.
is what it is. So that's why I was saying it's going to be a bit difficult for me to be like, I need to try and put myself in the mindset of because as like interested as I am about like Death Stranding 2 and stuff, I know that some people really resonated with it and others just really don't care anymore.
Right.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
like I don't know where that will land with consensus. So it's kind of got to
Mm.
put our critic hats on
Yeah.
and
And that's the fun thing about this is like if we're predicting our own game of the year, I think that's kind of, I don't know, boring. Like why the fuck would we want to do that instead of waiting for the game and playing it and then making our own official like, okay, this is actually what our game of the year is at the end of the year. But I think trying to predict what other people will think about it, what the consensus opinion of something is, I think that's so much more interesting. And I know that like you could do a dice game of the year prediction and you could go, but at the end of the day, I understand that there are other game of the year game awards and ceremonies that people should maybe take even more seriously than Keeley's show. But at the end of the day, there's one game award show. And like we can try to act like that's not the truth. We have our own game awards here. But at the end of the day, there's one that people tune into by the hundreds of millions, and then there's others that nobody watches, like ours. But hey, we would appreciate it if you tuned into ours. But
oh boy.
it's you got to be real. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like nobody's tuning into Dice. Nobody's tuning into not mass. It's not a mass market show, and that's okay. Like it can still you can still have a show that is much more valuable and much more um you know, esteemed in terms of the people who are voting on the awards. But at the end of the day, the one that hundreds of millions of people tune into, that's going to be the one that people talk about. So that's the one we're talking about here.
Yep.
Um, the Nickelback of Game
Nickelback
Awards
of Game
showcases.
Awards showcase. I love it.
But
You can take that, Keely, if you want. We can use it as a marketing technique.
and this is something I've said to you many times and I've said on the channel many times. I would rather listen to Nickelback than most prog metal. So prog metal is definitely as efficient and you can do all the cool fucking all the cool technical tricks on your guitar. But at the end of the day, I'd like to listen to Nickelback and I would like to watch Keeley's Game Awards show and get trailers for fucking humongous games and because I don't really care about most of the awards either. But as we sit here today, we're gonna really act like we care about these awards. I think it's more of a fun exercise than anything, just to go through it and see how it's kind of like betting, gambling.
Hmm.
I'll gamble on shit sometimes that I don't care about at all. We were in New Orleans last year and I was gambling on the WNBA. Like I don't know anything about the WNBA whatsoever, but I'm gambling on the WNBA because there were crazy odds. So it's like at the end of the day, we're just having fun, shooting the shit, some fun content. And if we're being completely honest, these videos in the past have done well for us, so we're hoping to get it back out there and do well for us again. So here we go. How about that for a sales pitch? Make
You liked it once, so you'll like it again. Eat up. There
Absolutely.
you go.
So Loon, this is the first time that you're running the ones and the twos here, so I'm gonna kind of let you carry the way and lead me as we should go because I don't see the screen.
Yeah, that's fun. So yeah, obviously we're trying different methods out every now and then, and trying to find the footing. So there will be a little bit of like chopping and changing when the what do you call it, the trailers run and stuff. So forgive that, but you know, it is what it is. So we
Absolutely.
beginning with Ghost of Yotei, and I think what I'll do is because we're both ranking them.
Mhm.
What I'll do is I won't run the footage straight away. We can do that in between our two stuff, so we can talk about it, and then. Or did you want me to lead off with the gameplay?
Well, do you want to rank it first and then run into the
Yeah,
gameplay, or do you want to do? Okay, okay, cool.
yeah.
So, all right, I'm looking at Ghost of Yotei here. Here's the issue with Yotei. For one, Tsushima only came in at like a 83, 84 on Metacritic when it launched, which is crazy to me. That game is definitely close, if not a nine, in my opinion. Um, but if this isn't far more innovative, if it isn't doing anything far more interesting than the first one, in a year as stacked as 2025, I don't know. But my bigger worry in general is that I don't I don't know if it's going to come out. We
Mm,
barely you can actually go ahead and run the footage and we'll because we it feels like we always talk about them first and then rank them after. So we'll run the footage first and then rank it after we finish talking about it. Because if you look like for the people at home so that they can watch along with us, if you're looking at this footage, there's nothing in there that would indicate that this thing is close. You know what I mean? We don't have a single shred of like combat, a single shred of you have the lady running on the horse or riding on the horse, but that's it for gameplay. And I don't know if that's an engine, like I don't know if that's necessarily straight up gameplay. It's been a little bit since I've saw the trailer, so I could be wrong, but there's no combat. I'm almost certain of that. So I'm just worried that it's not going to drop at all.
yeah, I don't. It's the weird thing of knowing who your competitor is. So if this comes out this year, it's a one-to-one competitor that's so like that closely resembles it as much as possible is Shadows. Shadows comes out in what, a week, a
Hmm.
week and a half. You're not going to get it out before then, so that already gets the head start. Yeah, of course, this is going to be much more of a refined product than
Yeah.
Shadows. But if you think like going further down the months as well, you're not only then having to compete with Shadows, but everything else on top of that. And the later the year goes on, the more and more competitiveness. I think it would just do them wonders to just push it 2026, aim for early
Yeah.
2026 to get the year off strong. But then you run into the issue as well of like a lot of people have been criticizing that PlayStation hasn't got a lot coming out this year, really.
Right. Hmm.
So are they worried about that? Do they maybe push it out when it's not ready? How good is Sucker Punch at working under a really like tight schedule thing and
Yeah.
like get it out, get it out, get it out? Because I don't remember anybody complaining about any issues with the first game, like performance wise.
No.
So clearly they know how to refine a product, but was that because they took their sweet ass time at refining that product? Or are they just very
Yeah.
good at refining the product regardless?
Well, I think the fact that I mean, they're on track for this to drop 5 years after the first one. I think that's a pretty good track record. I think that Sony really likes to be in Game of the Year Game Awards season. They
Mm-hmm.
like to drop their games before the cutoff. So if you're looking at it that way, we have until about late October,
Yep.
early November for this game to come out. If
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to drop it in December or anything, and then be like, okay, because I mean, look at the Astro got nominated for Game of the Year at Keeley's or won Game of the Year at Keeley's, and it ballooned sales wise after that. Like it sold, it was in the, I think the top five best selling games of December after it got nominated or after it won Game of the Year at Keeley's last year. So like it definitely has an impact on sales, no doubt. Um, I don't know, man. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go nominee. I don't think Sucker Punch. If you look at Infamous One versus Infamous Two, Infamous Two is so much stronger than Infamous One. It's just building off of that foundation, and that team is incredibly talented. I, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go nominee for now, and obviously we'll change
So
these
that's
around
top
as
six,
as
right?
we yeah in the top six.
Okay.
Because to be clear,
I
there's six games nominated for Game of the Year at
yeah,
Keeley's thing. That's why we have the top six, and we'll actually it'll end up being a top five because we'll have one of them that we
yeah, one
one
of
of the
them
top six we'll
pushes
pick
into
for
the
Game of the Year.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna be real. I don't think I'm gonna put it in doubtful for the sheer factor being I don't think it comes out.
Yeah, that would be
I
my number one reason too.
I very heavily doubt that it will release because I feel like if it was going to release, what was they had the state of play, right? That was what, last month?
Nothing was shown.
Nothing was shown on it whatsoever. So if you're going to build up hype and interest for the game, as per se, surely you would have done it at the beginning of the year on your very first showcase, get people like interested so that you can just keep drip feeding them interest throughout the year. And there was none of that whatsoever. So I don't think it comes out.
Yeah, if it isn't nominated, I think that's the number one reason it's not nominated is because it just doesn't launch in time.
I will say though, hot take. I don't think I don't think it makes top six if it comes out. Either though.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll have to go
I
through it. Because I've already forgot a lot of the games that I have on here, so we'll have to go through it and see.
you'd be like, oh, run it back. Um, yeah, I think a lot of people were met with they were kind of like cold feet with it, much like because did Horizon never got the sequel Horizon never got like nodded towards it, right? A Game of the Year nod, or did it?
Yeah, it
It
was
did.
nominated. Yeah.
Oh, maybe people are just getting more fickle. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I struggle to see it muscling out some of the other titles on this list.
Yeah. Well, let's go through them. Let's see what
So,
else we have on here that could possibly so you got it in doubtful, I got it in the top six.
yep.
Um,
So up
all right.
next will be Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
So this one I think is a lock. I think it's a lock for that top six. I don't think that you're gonna find this is like a very, very hardcore fan base
Mm-hmm.
for this thing. The people who love this thing. And I don't, for it being so successful, breaking through to a whole different realm. I mean, yeah, I think this is it's a hell of a feat. It's one of the best. stories of the generation. It's a hell of an accomplishment what they were able to do for $40 million. I think this is a lock for a top six.
Yep. Um, because it's fun that you fun. It's funny that you say that about it being like a die-hard playbase. You can really draw the comparison and distinction to this being like the same reverence that Souls games get. Is
Totally.
that they have their die-hard fan base from the first game. They continued to appeal to them, and they also branched out. Even they reached out further. It did what Elden Ring did, where
Yeah.
the Souls games were really successful, and From Software would have been happy to keep getting Dark Souls 3 level sales because that's fine. They made tons of money for them still. And now Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 did what Elden Ring did, where it absolutely ballooned for
Right.
the
And that's the
budget,
crazy.
and that's crazy.
And I think even the crazier thing is this is probably not even their Elden Ring yet. You know, I think they still got something in the chamber that's probably the big thing. This feels like a step, just a kind of direct step forward from KCD1, but that pivot that they take whenever they leave this behind, whenever they leave Kingdom Come Deliverance behind, because this is kind of like, okay, Dark Souls 1 into 2 into 3, and then whatever that next thing is, whenever they have all that polish and all those resources accumulated to really make that next big thing. Because it doesn't matter how good, they could have made this a 99 out of 100. 1500s Bohemia, they're not going to have, you know, 25, 30 million, 50 million sales. It's not going to hit Cyberpunk levels, Red Dead levels, even if the quality matches that. You know what I mean? Not sales wise. So when they transition their skill set into an even more like a setting that appeals to even more people, oh boy. They're gonna be rolling in the dough. And they've talked about wanting to tackle different historical periods as well. So cannot wait to see what they do next.
Yeah, I'm very glad that you used the comparison of this isn't their Elden Ring to also say
Mhm.
that the only way that they then because what I was worried about is you're going to say yeah in a Kingdom Come Deliverance 3 that's when they'll like realize their potential. I think they've hit their
Mhm.
ceiling for this.
Yep.
I think you've achieved everything you can from Bohemia in that time period. I think there's very little improvement that you could really do to also have it be the product that you want it to be.
Let me attack the fucking legs. Go ahead.
Um, well, there you go. You can add that in post as a as an update. Leg sweeping. Um, I think it all depends as well, though, because the reason these games are built with such love is because they were such historical buffs of that time period. They were
Yeah.
so invested because they wanted to do that time period. So do they then jump to another time? Because if they want to remain as like a historical studio, do you then run that risk of say like, oh yeah, let's do feudal Japan, but there may be like two people on that entire dev team that are for one passionate and knowledgeable? Do you run that risk of maybe wobbling a little bit? It's they would need to land on something that they all want to make, or as many of them want to make, and
Imagine like a gladiator style
that's what I
game
was.
by them.
I would so love
Whoo!
like something like tackling like Alexander the Great's
Yeah.
whole campaign kind of thing. That would be amazing. You obviously have, like I said,
Imagine
feudal Japan. You have so many like options of like really good. But what was you gonna imagine? What
because he kind of got fucked around, that Daniel Vara dude, where I think, let me, I don't know this for sure, but
paraphrasing?
Mafia. Right. This is kind of my lore that I'm making up in my head. Mafia 1 was super simmy when it launched back in the day. And
Hmm.
then and he was like, I don't know if he was the lead on that or whatever, but I know he was, I believe, the lead writer at least for Mafia 1. And once again, I could be wrong, but he worked on Mafia 1. And though it was super simmy at the start, and then Mafia 2 less simmy, Mafia 3 even less simmy. So imagine him going back to a mafia style 1920s whatever, and creating that real ultra semi experience that he wanted to make from the get-go. Like, I don't know, I just think he could, in that realm, in that ultra simulated experience, I think there's so much untapped potential.
Have we ever had a first-person Mafia game that hasn't had
No,
like supernatural elements? Because you have like the Darkness, which kind of flirts with that, but there's never been like it's always like Godfather third person, Mafia third person.
Even Grand Theft Auto, I don't think there's ever been a first person GTA clone unless you consider Cyberpunk.
Mm. Yeah, elements, yeah, but no. Personally, I don't. I think it does its
I
own
wouldn't
thing.
either. Yeah, it's a straight up, CDPR RPG more than it is a, yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
really
it
interesting. I think if they could do, because what I'm like, the gears are like turning now that I'm thinking about that. Like the level of attention to detail that Stalker has with its guns and stuff,
mhm.
taking that and then their life sim elements and bringing it into the real world and then running with it in like any Mafia set. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, I would worry about them attempting gunplay, pivoting that much that maybe you go to Rome first and then you go, go to New York later.
Yeah, I think they're best because you obviously played the game and I didn't. So this it does heavily weigh upon your thing. I don't know how the gunplay felt in the game. It probably, from what I looked at and watched, it looked fairly simple. It didn't look like there was much to it. The little gun thing with the that you
Yeah, the
lit,
pistol. Yeah.
there wasn't much to it.
The So okay, here's the thing. I played through it, I finished it. I did get to a point where the game got crazy buggy. And
Okay,
so I don't know. I do wonder maybe by now it's all polished, but even in the footage that I captured whenever we did the ranking in February,
is that
you'll
where you
see me
shot the guy
walking.
like 5 times?
Yeah,
Okay,
nothing happened.
okay.
Yeah. And so like it started getting pretty busted to the point where I was at times unsure if I was unsure if I was just doing something completely wrong. Whereas like but all throughout the rest of the game, if I attacked somebody, they immediately attacked me back.
Mm,
And I was just able to attack people over and over and nothing would happen.
yep.
And even to the point where missions wouldn't progress, I would keep attacking over and over and have to reload and reload and Anywho, but I don't think it doesn't seem like most people had a. I also kind of worry that a lot of people didn't get to the end of the game and, you know,
That's
uh,
never stopped them before though, because
that's what I'm saying.
Baldur's Gate 3, a lot of the I love it, man. Like I love Larian. I love what they do, and I love the game. But the game falls off act after act. It does get much less of a product.
Mhm.
Like it, I will say of their most recent pieces of content, like Divinity and stuff, it's got the strongest act to act progression, personally. But again, a lot of the people that get through praise on it and praise also didn't counteract by saying that the third act was kind of because they never made it to it. So yeah, I could see
Exactly.
this. I could see this riding a lot of praise because, much like you said, there's probably a lot of people that didn't end up getting deeper and deeper into it if there were actual issues.
And I made a whole video about that recently talking about like I don't even know if that experience is invalid. You know what I mean? Like if you played hundreds of hours of it and you really liked it and you think it's your game of the year based off those 100 hours even if you didn't finish it, it's like okay, I guess. Like I feel weird about it, but I don't. I think it's still. I think I still live in a fucking archaic worldview of like you have to finish everything, and that's you can't. You can't call it your game of the year if you haven't finished it. You can't score it a 8.5 if you haven't finished it. But then it's like, well, bitch, you played 50 hours of it, and someone else played 200 hours. Why do you think you have an opinion that's valid and they don't? I don't know.
Yeah, I can see an argument from both sides because obviously I know I've listened to you talk about games a lot now. God, do you drone on? No. You plow through, mate. Like
Oh yeah.
to put it into perspective, I got Avowed earlier than you, and I had like 40 hours into Avowed, and I'm doing everything. I'm fucking poking everything that can be poked, touching, like, and then you're like, yeah, I'm in, and they're like, yeah, I'm done. Dude, what the fuck
Yep.
you mean you're done? I'm in like Act Two. How are you done? And it's just so that's what I mean. I can understand of like I think people need to say that like when they're giving their opinion on it, that they kind of need to weigh less on giving like a narrative opinion if you've not touched the narrative. Because you can
Right.
go into like KCD2 and play 200 hours and do very little of the narrative, but you've experienced the richness of the world, tons of
Mhm.
side quests, tons of environmental locations. So that doesn't take away from the fact that they've experienced that. But I don't think that they should
Right.
really have a say in like, yeah, the narrative's amazing because you haven't touched it.
Well, yeah, and that's always been my thing is if I love what I'm doing so much in the main story, then I'll do side quests.
Hmm.
That's always my thing. Where it's like if I'm really, really enjoying this game, if I'm loving this game, then I'll go dick off and do tons of side quests. And if I'm not, then I'm gonna keep plowing through the main story. And hopefully at some point my enjoyment creeps up. And then if it doesn't, I hate it for your side quests because even if you got some of the best side quests in the world, if I'm not digging your game, then that's a wrap on that. But you got it in the top six bucket. Or are
Yeah,
you unsure?
I don't
Okay.
see this not making top six. Where are you putting yours?
Yeah, top six without a doubt.
Yeah.
I even think that they're no. I was never mind. I was gonna say
No,
it
it's not
could
game
be.
of the year.
It's not a game of the year, but
It's so close though.
it's close. Well, I really don't know. I'm unsure. It could be. We'll get to it when we get to it.
I'm talking
Is
comparatively, like if you were to line up every single year and you think like if something wobbles, it could walk in. Like if it was in a different year, that could be so easily sweeping a game of
oh
the year
this would be
thing.
2024. This would be 2024's game of the year by a mile.
But yeah, this it's what I mean. Like looking at it, like there's tons of stuff here that could be surprising as well. Because the more I've seen of South of Midnight, I know that's getting a bit further down the list, and we're not going to rank that yet. But the more I see of South of
Yeah.
Midnight, for instance, like, man, I'm actually getting excited for it. Like, what is this? I had no interest in that game whatsoever. Like
Is the
three
next
months
one
ago.
up? The next one up's Nightreign, right?
Yeah,
Okay. I think this is
FromSoft
probably the
3 in a
most.
row.
That's what I was about to say. I think this is probably the most interesting of the entire list because, like, I could see this being the, all right, we're about to riot year. You know what I mean? Where it's like three times. Obviously not a real riot. I fucking that's ridiculous. Nobody gives that much of a shit. But last year there was some serious pushback from Erdtree. And if it's again three times
So
same game, I mean I know there's differences to Night Rain, but
I was, yeah,
uh
I'm gonna step in a little bit and be the FromSoft apologist. This is technically a new game. It is getting it's gonna have its own list and stuff. So it's not a DLC. This is a standalone. So
boy.
technically it is, and it's doing things differently as well. It's a new genre because it's fully co-op. It's kind of like a weird extraction thing that they're doing. But yeah, I think
I,
people feel a little bit wrong if it does get
I
nominated.
think it's going to. I really do.
And
It's so insane.
I I don't know. I'm not as hard like yeah, it will get nominated as you, even though I love their games because this is the first time ever where they are prioritizing multiplayer. Usually that's a tag on side
Yeah.
by side. It's usually you have the main single player and you're going through areas and stuff and you're conquering these things. This is a co-op experience first and foremost. This is more in line with what looks to be like Remnant in the way they handle their content and stuff like that, rather than a traditional, you know, Dark Souls, even Elden Ring itself. So you have that thing of like, is this going to then be a lot of people's Sekiro that it is to me, where it's like, that's a little bit too different. I don't want that. And you kind of bounce off of that, where you're going to have a ton of people where it resonates with and clicks, and they're going to be like, man, that's interesting as hell. I love this. But then you may have a ton of people that don't like that. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
excited for it.
And
I'll be 100% honest. I'm looking forward to it. I wanna I want more of it, more of the world. I want the thing that interests me the most as well is the fact that they're not only showing Elden Ring bosses, they're pulling bosses from the previous series. Even though
oh,
for so long now he's like, no, they are separate. They are and it's just like, do you know what I'm beginning to learn, Miyazaki? you're my world's favorite liar because you constantly chat shit about saying like you always say something and then you end up going back on it, but it's always better that you go back on it. It's like the what he's my favorite liar in the world. It's just beautiful.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah, that lore really a lot of consistency there with that high quality lore. Um, Listen, man, I I'm gonna go doubtful. I'm gonna go doubtful for Nightreign. It would be a bit wild to see Elden Ring, 3 times in the top six. Even if it is a drastically different experience, I just think that's a bad look, man. And but I guess you could kind of say, wait, we could go around in circles. I'm gonna go doubtful. I'm gonna go doubtful on it, but I kind of have a feeling, just like my gut is telling me to put it in the top six because it's a From game. But Armored Core, to be fair, didn't get nominated. But I think that came out like 2023, the most stacked year ever. So um,
Yeah, it was also different as well.
yeah, it wasn't a Souls thing. Yeah, that's
No,
true.
it was fucking hard in the Souls game. Um,
I'm gonna go doubtful.
it's so weird because I'm so split on it as to like it's literally a coin toss whether or not that would make of all the games on this list. I'm at least like 60-40 in opinions. Like I'm at least like a majority I can be like, yeah, that this I can easily make, but this is really like a 50-50 thing of like I I'm just gonna run with my feelings on it. I wouldn't want it to be. So I'll go doubtful. I wouldn't want that to make top six. No matter how good it is or how different it is, it isn't a good look for
It's
competitiveness
horrible
sake. And it's
optics.
just like I get it. Like they do make incredibly polished products. They're amazing games. They are in their own genre. They are the best at what they do 9 times out of 10. But we can't. Is this going to be the ball rolling constantly? They're just going to do this yearly because that's absurd. That is
Yeah.
actually absurd. Like there has to be a time where it's just like, yeah, man, this it's a great like 9 out of 10 game, but it's there's other stuff that's come out that is also 9 out of 10 that deserves to be shouted out.
Yeah. So is it going to be like Fortnite Season 7 wins Game of the Year and Grand Theft Auto 6 DLC went like, yeah, that's wild. Um, Metroid Prime 4. So I Metroid never really hits like that. It's never in that same camp of Mario and Zelda. But in 2017, Switch comes out, Breath of the Wild comes out, Mario Odyssey comes out. Both are nominated for Game of the Year, I believe, in 2017. So could this be a similar thing where Metroid takes Zelda's place and two Nintendo games are nominated for Game of the Year? Because something Mario's getting nominated. There's no doubt about that. If Mario drops out, we can, I guess, spoilers for later on, but if Mario drops, Mario's getting nominated. Quality be damned. Um, Mario Wonder got nominated in 2023, one of the most stacked years in video game history. You know, I Metroid seems like it has to fight a little bit harder though. And I don't know if it has the cachet. Like popularity is a big factor here.
I mean, so's the name though. Nintendo
But I don't
Switch 2 dropping, and if that's one of your flagship titles, that in itself can carry it to a top six. They could have made a brand new IP that's absolute dog, and just the hype of it being the Nintendo Switch 2, that is also ammo in its arsenal, if that makes sense. Because this could feel like a 7 out of 10 game, but because you're with the novelty of a brand new console, the hype of pulling it, that can easily stack it up 2 extra points.
damn, yeah. You know what? I agree. I'm putting it in my top six. I mean, those games are critical darlings. Metroid Prime 1 is a critical darling. And they just remastered it. That's somewhat fresh in the zeitgeist. I'm putting it in my top six. I mean, I really don't like having two Nintendo games in my top six, but we might be looking at two Nintendo games in the top six again.
Um, okay. So yours are top six.
Yeah.
Is there another Mario Kart?
Yeah, Mario Kart's got a that's gonna be nominated.
This is so difficult for me because, like, obviously, I happily put my hands up with like a bias against. Like, I have no interest in it whatsoever. Either of these. So I'm going to. I'll say top six, and then I'm just gonna throw Mario Kart under the bus personally. Because like really, like a kart racer,
Yeah.
like no, I'm being like dead serious now. Like that's not even a joke. Like even how like enjoyable they are, like it's the same stuff. What do they change in Mario Kart? Like it looks almost identical since the ones that I've tried like many years ago. So
Well, we haven't seen anything of it yet, to be fair.
I'm
So
talking
we
about the
we
previous ones that have come out.
oh, okay,
Like
okay, I get what you're saying.
of
Yeah.
course they can change the formula and make it Mario Kart Horizon,
Yeah, I
but
think that's what it's gonna be.
that's I would be shocked if they did that, and I'd happily concede. But just it being a standard kart racer kind of thing, it's just like I know like it's been around and it has the pedigree, but like why doesn't Sonic and Crash Team get like viewed at the same things to me? But
Well, I
that's
mean, yeah, I think you could probably make an argument that that Sonic kart racer that's gonna drop this year might end up being better, might end up being the better kart racer, but it doesn't. That's irrelevant to the conversation,
yep.
unfortunately. Um,
Doesn't
all
have the
right,
reverence. Right, Mafia
yeah,
Old Country up next.
yeah. I mean, if I'm being honest, like as much as I would love for this to hit that top six, I don't think so. Critics have never really been too kind to Mafia.
No, I think that's what a
Um,
lot of people sleep on. We have a lot
yeah.
of people where it's like you and me that's like, yeah, man, the games are amazing, and then you look at the scores and you're like, what the fuck? Who pissed in your cereal when you were playing this game? Like, what happened?
Critics have never been really too kind to any GTA clone that wasn't GTA. You know, I mean, Saints Row 3 kind of, but even that really didn't get a ton of love critically.
No, it got
Um,
it got a ton of shit. The only person I remember talking like warmly on it was Yahtzee, and he didn't even draw the comparison of GTA when he was talking about it. He was just like, if you're gonna do something, just be batshit insane at what you do, and that's exactly what
mhm.
it did. It's kind of shed its skin of trying to be a GTA's clone and just going for absurdity factor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It's I don't know there that genre really has never gotten outside of Grand Theft Auto, like even Sleeping Dogs, legitimately one of the greatest games I've ever played in my life. It's like sitting at a 79 on Metacritic or some shit. It's weird how that game does it. It's like every single thing is compared to Grand Theft Auto on the most just the absolute finest fucking detail. They're comparing it all to Grand Theft Auto, where it's like you don't really see that same level of criticism for I don't
Mm,
know Souls-like games or whatever. Like Lies of P reviewed really well, and
yeah, to a lesser extent, yeah, the Souls they do get like comparison dragged quite a lot. But the thing that I would say is the closest to that would be when something's branded. Like it doesn't get done as much anymore. But COD Killers, you think of like Haze and all of these
yeah,
other games, and even Halo at some point was being like drawn comparatively to it, and it's just like I'm glad that they've kind of broken away from that mold. That's not really a phrase that gets thrown around anymore. Like FPS games just do their own thing, and it's how it should be. And it's the same with the like Mafia, and it's the same with Sleeping Dogs. Like they should have never been drawn one to one comparison to it because it's like Rockstar just live in a completely different like universe. You should put them
yeah,
in the same universe as like Nintendo first party things of where they are untouchable, whether or not you would like them or not. They just they will sell
Well,
gangbusters and they will
yeah.
dominate the world when they come out. And like same with like Monster Hunter and stuff like that. Like it affects everything for a time. So
Well, it's a universe even beyond those two universes. Like there's Capcom. I forget the team that Capcom isn't going to give the Monster Hunter team infinite money. They're not going to give. You don't have a fucking blank check budget for Monster Hunter. There are restraints, and Monster Hunter has to be made with a certain like. Okay, you're going to sell 30 million copies. We're going to give you a budget for 30 million copies, but GTA
isn't it two
it is
billion
it
now?
it's sold 200 million copies. They're predicting that GTA 6 will make 1.3 billion dollars day one.
And I think the because the projected costs that people have predicted, it's about 2 billion development time
I
as
wouldn't
well.
doubt
Of
it.
like, and it's the type of thing like you said, they are in their own. No other dev team could do that because we constantly roasted like Suicide Squad where they're talking about like, yeah 200 million and it's like what are you doing that's not sustainable. But GTA they can eat that cost because even like they did break that as like a day one sales record. That's incredible, like that much to earn them. But they're in no rush to also make it back because they know that it is just a moneymaker. It will be making them
Yeah.
money for 10, 15 years, perhaps even 20 at this point. Like it's absurd.
Well, and that's the thing is like a game like a Monster Hunter might not ever see $1 billion.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing
Hmm.
is that GTA 6 might outsell Monster Hunter World or Wild's entire lifetime sales on day one.
Yeah.
Like that's fucking nuts, dude. Um, and so like, how can you compare Mafia to that? Like, that's not fucking fair at all. But regardless, it does get compared to that, and so that's why I'm gonna have to unfortunately put it in the doubtful camp. I'm really excited for it. That's one of my more anticipated games. I love all of those Mafia games, even three. Three has a tremendous story.
Yep. I'll throw mine in doubtful as well. I think the reason it does get compared is just it's just content bait. It's so
Yep.
easy, like it catches the eye and stuff like that. COD Killer, a GTA clone, and stuff like that because it's both of them games are so they break past the normal boundaries of a normal game because
Yep.
they're in the casual space. So anybody who has heard of gaming has heard of them two IPs. So when they can easily like relate to, oh, okay, that's going to be that. That's good. Okay. So yeah. Unfortunately, Mafia, I can see this. I think it also will just get delayed. I don't see it dropping this year, personally.
I think it'll be this year, but I think it'll be like I definitely don't think it's coming out summer.
But it's the dice that they have to roll. Is they're basically playing chicken with GTA, whether or not they like it or not. Because it's like, do they try and push it out before GTA's launch? Go for this year? Because a lot of people think GTA 6 will get delayed.
Well, there it's the same company. Take Two
Okay.
owns both of them, so it'll be they'll
I don't
know.
think they. But we've seen this before. People get cannibalized in their own companies. You know, EA threw Battlefield and Titanfall out in the same month.
Yeah. Take Two's a little bit better about stuff like that, but I think here's what I think. If Mafia comes out in summer, I think that means Grand Theft Auto actually is going to come out this year. If Mafia gets pushed to like fall, there's no chance Grand Theft
Yeah,
Auto is coming out this year.
that's fair.
So that's what I predict. And then I guess we can well we'll get to it in a second here when we get to it. Split Fiction next up on the board.
Yes, sir.
Um Yeah, so we just finished this. I think we would both agree this is abso-fucking-lutely game of the year quality video game. We ain't got to get too much into the weeds on our thoughts. We'll save that for the ranking, but I would be absolutely positively stunned if this wasn't in the final six. I think that you can make an argument this is the best co-op game ever made. I think you were actually the one that said that
Mm-hmm.
on the stream. So I yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Yep. For a game that has to be played in co-op, so I'm not talking about like the option of like co-op. I'm talking about like for forced co-op. It is the best co-op game ever made. I think it's them firing on all cylinders. It's the best set of gameplay that they've managed so far from any of their games. The only gripe I have is it's the weakest part of it is the narrative. But at the end of the day, you're not
Yeah.
playing a game like this for the narrative because it's what I saw a lot of people kind of trying to pick at it. Be like, yeah, I've heard the narrative isn't as good, and it's like, I mean, it's a co-op game. What you need to keep in mind, there's
People are
no
talking through the cutscenes.
exactly, there's no. There are scenes in this game that if you're playing on your own, they would make you shed a tear. You're not going to shed that
Right.
tear when you're together because it's when you have a co-op partner, every single second that you're playing that game is an immediate reminder that it is a video game. It is
Yep.
immersion breaking. So there is always some level of detachment. And I'm talking from like I can get extremely immersed into a game, and even then it's impossible. You can't. So other than that being the only critique that you could kind of throw it its way, it's best in class.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
Nintendo wishes they could do this. I would say
Yeah.
for a
Oh,
co-op
yeah.
thing, like this is something Nintendo wishes they could have as like a flagship uh day one title for the Switch to sell it. This would
And I think it
do
will.
absurd.
I think they'll launch this day one on the Switch too. I
I
think
hope they
that'll be
do.
really smart for Split Fiction, for Haze Light, for Nintendo, for all parties involved.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, so the problem I guess here is I don't necessarily want to put it as my GOTY, my prediction to win Game of the Year right now, because we still got to go through and talk. So I think I'm gonna drop it in my top six. Um, and then we'll kind of talk through everything and reorganize this top six to finalize the GOTY, or for me, because I really don't know. Like I said, I forgot what all is on this list. I got to go through it.
So you said top six for you.
Yeah.
It'll be top six for me as well. And what I'll say is the thing I'm imagining is how would you describe it? Every single year they always do like a nod to like you have all of the big heavy hitters and then there's like an indie game or a
Mhm.
smaller game. I think this will swoop that spot.
Right.
So when people are kind of
Because
like, "There's no way Split Fiction will get to it," and it's like, you always have to keep in mind they always leave that one like door open for a Balatro and stuff like that. And Split Fiction, yeah, I know they have a massive, massive budget. It is kind of unfair to give them that slot, but they also independently identify as a smaller studio. So I think that will end up taking that spot.
Well, and it's the thing, like in 2023, there's no room for an indie game. In 2023, it was too stacked. 2025 is going to be the same thing. You're not going to have room for an indie game on here, more than likely. So, Split Fiction, I think, is just going to be the closest thing you can get. But
Mm-hmm.
even then, like, I've played, the majority of the heavy hitters that have come out this year. I think Split Fiction is better than all of them. You know what I mean? So, like, I think based off its own merit, should be in that top six, not even just as like here you're a
As a
lower budget thing.
token.
I think
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So yeah, top six for both of us on that one.
Yes.
So if I'm not mistaken, next up on the list is the old Grand Theft Auto 6, eh?
That it is. As I wait for the trailer to roll over.
Boy, oh boy. So yeah, we just talked about this and so is the only conversation here that's worth having is does it come out or not? You know what? I guess let's hold off on that one because I think we both have our opinion on that. But like, is there any world where this is a cyberpunk? I mean, that's a conversation worth having. If you had to ask me personally, if a gun to my head, make a bet, is it cyberpunked or not? I don't think Rockstar will ever allow
No.
something like that to happen. They
No.
they have all the time in the world. They're not pressured to get this out in 2025.
I'm gonna say something that's gonna piss people off. It's not releasing on PC, so it won't.
Yeah,
They
that is
literally
actually
just
true.
released the GTA 5 like patch thing for PC, and it's like one of the worst reviewed things. It's pissed a lot of people off. It's just in a bad
Mhm.
state. I think it's just what they do. They pad. Like, don't get me wrong. Like their games are amazing, of course, and cutting edge, and but the reason that they focus on console is because that's where their biggest market is to make
Yep.
the money, they only have to then take into consideration these specific hardware requirements. Because there's a ton of people that are like, there's no way this will get to run on like on a Series S and stuff. Dude, it's Rockstar. They have unlimited budget. They can cut and change whatever they want. This isn't like a Larian where it's like, man, that's like pulling teeth trying to get this co-op shit to work. They have an entire like dev budget dedicated to doing that if they wanted to. So
I am one of those people who wonder though about what Series S thing
it's
is
just
going
gonna
to
look like
happen.
shit. It's
Or
gonna
is it going to be like no online or something, you think maybe?
No, it'll have online.
Would they get away with it?
It'll just look like shit. Is my imagination is you're gonna just basically run it at like a comically low resolution. Have it have like ridiculously low draw distances in comparison to like a PS5 Pro and stuff like that. It's just gonna be. I think many people have drawn that it's gonna be the system seller for a PS5 Pro. It is.
Yeah.
It's the reason to get it because it's gonna be the best place to play it.
You want my prediction on that?
Go ahead.
I don't think it's going to be much different than a base PS5 and a Series X. I think they're looking at how small that install base is for the PS5 Pro, and they're like, we are not wasting a bunch of fucking resources on optimizing this thing for a console with such a small user base.
I think they
But
will because they gotta do the PC port at some point.
that's true.
It's kind
That's
of just
true.
preparing for that and stuff. And with a lot of the time is they're probably the PS5 Pro will be the base like requirement probably for the PC port is what they'll aim
Do,
to like hit that market for.
do you think there's a situation where we just see a PS5 Pro patch later on down whenever they're about to launch it for PC? They launch a patch for the PS5 Pro simultaneously where it's like, yeah, now you can
Oh,
finally hit 60 frames.
you think this is gonna drop just as like it's identical? It'll just
Not
be
identical, but I don't think you're going to get 60 frames on PS5 Pro. If it's not available on base PS5 and Series X, I don't think it'll be on PS5 Pro either. That seems like a lot of
mm,
legwork for them to get that up and running for an install base of like 3-4 million people.
but how much of it is like talking, with Sony behind closed doors that they know that if they can convince them to do that, that they will shift copy because they will just fly off shelves. No one
Yeah,
has a
10 million.
reason to buy a PS5 Pro now, other than unless you're a extremely diehard consumer. Like
Yeah.
I need it. Like this is my platform. I need it to be at the best possible point that it is at all times. That is the only people that are buying the PS5 Pros right now. So if they have that reason of the most anticipated game in modern age, because I'd say that this is more people are more hyped for this than they are Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
and
for
you
sure.
think of how much Cyberpunk dominated the internet on its lead up and
Mhm.
everything. So like, I think Sony has a lot more power to throw around than we maybe give them credit for.
Could be. Yeah.
I think they could hold a tiny fire under Rockstar's feet and make them play
So
ball.
I guess, do you, all right, so back to basics. Do you have any concern of, not, concern's not the right word. Do you have any, in your crystal ball,
Mm-hmm.
do you see any future where this is not a game of the year contender? And if so, what would the reasoning possibly be?
No, it has to be because this is different as well. Is that their output used to be every what 4 years for a GTA game, roughly 3 4
Used to be
years.
every year. GTA 3,
I'm talking about the
2001.
360 though. Like 4 to 5 was what?
Yeah, 4 was 2008, 5 was 2013.
It's about 5 years
Yep.
ish, 4 or 5 years, give or
Hmm.
take. You're now we went an entire generation without a GTA game because then next gen that's no, we're not counting that.
No.
That's the same game. That's just you're tarting it up. You get an
Yeah, that's
entire
Elden Ring Nightreign.
generation, and now we're encroaching on the middle of this generation. It's even getting to like the tail end of it. Some might believe there's no way this doesn't get. It would be catastrophic for them to not make top six.
So the next question is, do they launch in time to make top six?
No, I
So
don't think
that's
this. I don't
where
think this drops. I don't think this drops this year. Personally, I
I
don't.
don't either.
I know people really, really want it, so I'll just throw mine in doubtful straight away before, unless you want to throw yours in right away.
I'm throwing mine in doubtful as well.
And yeah, I don't foresee it coming out. And on top of that, it's weird because we're obviously talking so strongly about it. I like GTA games. I couldn't care less when they release. I'm not yearning for it, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think I've ever yearned for a GTA game in my lifetime. They're kind of just like, yeah, it's like an expectation thing. It's like I never want to hold a deadline to a Rockstar game because there's no point. It'll come out when it comes out. The you as the consumer, it's not like something like a Ubisoft where like that you could kick up enough fuss and they would end up probably
Just
caving
drop
in.
it.
They would cave into pressure eventually if they saw their stock begin to plummet and they're like, oh shit, they would eventually kick it out. Whereas Rockstar, just like I said, there's rumors that it's taken 2 billion marketing across like all development and like to promote it and stuff, and it's just like it's unheard of, man. No game does that. No piece of media does that ever.
No.
So when it comes out, it comes out, and when it comes out, I'll be there. I'll check it out.
Yeah. And you're only spending 2 bill if you think you can make back 20. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're flipping them a massive profit on a massive budget, which is insane to even think about making a fucking profit back off $2 billion spent. All right, so we both got that one in doubtful for GTA 6. The Outer Worlds 2,
Yep.
next up on the docket.
Next up.
How are you feeling about the Outer Worlds 2's chances of getting anywhere in here? I feel like
Right. Before we begin opening that can, are you positive or are you negative on this?
positive or negative on its chances.
Oh, just like feeling on the game as well. Because if
Oh,
you're
very
positive,
positive.
okay, I'll let you lead then. Because I've got a
Oh
little
boy.
bit of like a negative.
Well, I guess I'll lead in with my negative and then shift to positive and then you bounce back to negative. I think it's not going to
We
get
don't want to
nominated
end
because
on a negative.
well, I don't think it's going to get nominated because I don't think it's going to come out in time. I think it'll be the thing where like Indiana Jones was last year. I think it'll be that situation this year where it comes out in December or late November. Um, I think it
Okay.
will come out in 2025. I just
Yep.
don't think it'll be the window for, because like you got to whatever crazy criteria where it's like the cutoff is October 31st. It's like, well, bitch, there's 2 more months left in the year. Ridiculous. Anywho, yeah, I cannot wait for this thing. I think this is probably going to be Obsidian's, not to say A team, B team, because I don't know the inner workings of their shit, but like with Resident Evil, there's definitely an A team and a B
Mm-hmm.
team. And I think with a lot of studios, I would imagine that Nightreign is probably not the A team from software. And I would imagine the A team is probably working on the next big new IP.
I don't think.
Um,
Sorry to interject. I don't think FromSoft are foreseeing the development of Nightreign. I believe that's Bandai. Bandai is handling
oh,
it, and
Jesus Christ.
FromSoft are overlooking it.
So that's like the C or D team.
Is my
Um,
understanding because that's what a lot of people kind of. Well, I was like, I don't think you should be like as pissed that they're because they're not like fully devoting their time onto it. It's kind of just like a. It's kind of like how he handled the Dark Souls 2 development. He was kind of just there.
Interesting. Um, but yeah, I would imagine this is kind of like this is where the attention is going for Obsidian right now. Especially Avowed launched, so I would imagine all hands are on deck for the Outer Worlds too. They were talking about Alpha Protocol in a recent interview. They were talking about it. It's never gonna happen, but they were also talking about fucking Shadowrun or some shit as well.
Yeah,
So
so they were talking about all of like the different IPs. I think that was because it was spurred on by the achievement list, which kind of like piqued people's interests. How it was like
yeah.
referencing every Obsidian game, and it's like, ooh, what are the likelihood then that we'll ever get these? Nah, none.
Yeah. I would, yeah, anywho, but The Outer Worlds 2, I think is going to be incredible. I think the first game is absolutely fantastic. One of the best games of last generation. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be fantastic. I just don't think it's going to launch in time. So for me, that's doubtful.
Okay, I'm gonna throw mine in doubtful immediately.
Okay.
Um, how to kick this off? I love Obsidian. I love them a lot. I think that their acquisition has given them some really good pros and at the same time some really big cons. So the pros are obviously they have financial stability. It allows them to then release a polished product. You look at, Avowed aside for me, like I can't obviously beat it with that bug. Still it hasn't been patched. Get on it, Obsidian,
So
for fuck's sake.
crazy.
But you obviously went through it with pretty minimal, you know,
Zero.
yeah. So and there's a lot of people that also went through it, and the same with the Outer Worlds one. I can talk for that. I didn't run into any bugs, any issues and stuff from start to
Nor did
finish.
I.
So they've shed that skin, but they've also, and I don't know if you'll agree with this, they've begun going down the same route that Bethesda went down, in the sense that they are watering down what made them good. And it's worrying to me to see that happen again and again and again. Because we saw it in the Outer Worlds, and it was like, okay, maybe that's just going to be like they're going to do this for the Outer Worlds. They have a
Wait,
vision
what
in they have a vision in
you
what's up
you thought that happened with the Outer Worlds? You thought it was watered down?
in comparison to their other stuff. Yeah, in comparison to you're
Even
talking Pillars, you're talking
oh, of course, yeah.
Fallout New Vegas has much more in way of role playability.
It's bigger, but would you say it has more in terms of role playability? Like in terms
Yep,
of
in builds and stuff because they didn't do what they did in Avowed where they've completely watered it down. This is my worry: is that Avowed is a lot more watered down, is it not? Would you agree with
yeah,
that?
without a doubt.
So I'm kind of sitting there like because I'm not
Right.
putting the Outer Worlds. I'm not saying that it's gonna be an Avowed one to one. Like
Mhm.
okay, they're gonna follow in that footstep. I'm saying they cannot do that. If they do that,
Mm.
that's I'm sorry. Like I put you in the same category as Bethesda. Then you've been acquired and you've gone for the polishing and you want to make things look pretty, but you're making the things that made your games magical disappear because it's what they've slowly like they had pretty good writing in the Outer Worlds, and the writing in Avowed is tragic from an
Yeah. So
interesting perspective, from a roleplay perspective, from a lore perspective. Like it's very dry.
Mhm.
So they're gonna have the comedic tones in the Outer Worlds too, but what I'm gonna be looking at is the stuff that isn't the comedic tones to see what they're going with, like where this snowball's going. Because yeah, I can take their jokes and stuff. They had jokes in Avowed and stuff, but how are you treating the world? Because that's your strong suit. That's what made you when you were compared when you did Fallout New Vegas. Their strong suit was that they did Fallout story better than Bethesda did themselves because they were some of the
Right.
original DNA. So if they release the Outer Worlds 2 and it's kind of just a half-assed baked story and they're not really giving it all that much care and love, it's going to be like I'm kind of worried for you, Obsidian.
Do you think it's a situation where like if you boot up that game and there's no speech stats and you're not able to kind of talk your way out of things, that's like a death nail for not a
Yep,
death nail, but like a death nail
yep,
for you for you're like, oh yeah,
yep.
y'all totally went.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
because it's the thing of like Bethesda had the strong RPG DNA, and then with every subsequent release that they obviously were targeting consoles as their primary sales, got more and more watered down until you got to Skyrim, and it's like, yeah, Skyrim is beautiful. It's a really cool game, but the RPG elements are weak as shit compared to the games previous in the series, and that's my big worry for Obsidian. Are they also falling into that trap? Because
Could
then
we
it turns out it turns into a thing of like kind of resent you being picked up now. I'd rather you have a little bit of fire under your feet because then you were kind of leading with initiative then. And I know that sounds horrible to say that because of these are people's jobs and they've gained security, but I'm talking as like somebody who's a consumer. That's I want a product that has soul as well.
Do you think there's any chance we boot up the Outer Worlds 2 and the polish, refinement, top tier combat, that quality carries over from like an Avowed into an Outer Worlds 2, and then we keep the bread and butter of
I'm
the
hoping.
choice, the consequence? That would be like, oh, they're next level. But I get what you're saying. There's definitely reason to be worried.
I'm hoping, and it's kind of that thing of like my worry is that have they split because obviously a different team worked on Avowed. Should they have just stayed together and just solely focused on one project at a time? Will this them breaking off and having that Avowed thing has that then put them understaffed for stuff in the Outer Worlds too? And this just time will tell.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Well, I guess right there next to it is Avowed, right? We both have
Mm-hmm.
Outer Worlds. Do you have Outer Worlds in the doubtful
Yep,
camp? Okay.
I do indeedy.
Avowed. I'm guessing there's probably not really much reason to linger too long on
I think
Avowed.
we can. That's why I
I
went so hard with it, like my description, because I knew that we're both close together.
Right. And I would say maybe I'm a little bit more positive on Avowed than you are, obviously, because I didn't run into a game-breaking bug and I just had so much fun with the exploration and combat, which you did as well. And I think we can both acknowledge how high quality the top tier
Yeah,
the exploration and combat is. But is it game of the year contender quality? Probably not.
my criticisms as well don't just stem from running into that game breaking bug. It's also
The
how
writing,
much
yeah.
identity it's lost from being in a core series. It would be like the way I would describe it is if they went and like you had Alpha Protocol that you love the writing in Alpha Protocol, and you love like the world building that they did in the game. Like, there's so many aspects of that game you love, and then they would turn around being like, okay, we're going to continue in that series. We're just going to pivot slightly, and then they turn it into like a first person shooter, and then they just
Right.
don't capitalize on anything that made the original thing good, but it does
Yeah.
things good in its own way. It's just like, and I'm so mixed on this. Like, I love the exploration. I love all of that, the verticality, how beautiful it looks. But like the world, man, you that's just not it. It's not what I would have
Mhm.
wanted.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm obviously in the doubtful camp with Avowed. And I just think from a popularity standpoint, it didn't make a splash. I think that's a big factor as well. Where like it 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 just didn't really seem to hit. It didn't feel like people were really talking about that thing.
No, and
I
when they were
like it.
talking about it, they were very negative.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do think that's kind of overblown, like harsh negativity for Avowed is like, I okay, I get it from your perspective if you're a hardcore Pillars fan. Um, yeah, dude, definitely I get that. But like, I don't really understand how you can play the game and think the gameplay is bad or the gameplay is not fun. There's definitely
Mm-hmm.
positives
Yeah, no.
in this, yeah,
As much as
but.
it hurt me, I have positives to counter with, of course.
Mhm. But it's the thing where I I just my thing is not that I heard people talking negatively about it. I just didn't hear people talking about it often. And
Mm,
it is that once again, it's a popularity contest to a certain extent, and I don't think this has the popularity to back it.
no,
So I'm
I
going doubtful.
also because what I want to just like throw one more question your way.
Hmm.
Even if it was like talked about and people kind of felt the same way as you, there's no way this is a top six game though, right? There's no,
No, no, no, no, no, no. Not this year.
no.
Maybe last year, but no, not this year.
Because I was gonna say
Not
like
this year.
the element, even if I didn't run into like a game breaking bug, 10th maybe for me,
Well, yeah, I mean,
maybe
we're looking
12th.
We're looking at Kingdom Come, Yotei, Metroid Prime 4, Split Fiction. That's already my. You got Nightreign and like, yeah, that's no, no. That's it's not no. Avowed has no shot in 2025. So
Shall we head?
doubtful on both accounts.
Shall we head to the beach then and hold some babies, deliver some packages, and do
Oh
whatever other
my
bullshit Kojima wants us to do?
God, Luna, I don't want to play this game. I
But the
This
Metal
is
Gear
really
references.
that shit was hard. I can't even sit here and lie. That shit was really hard. That shot of Stranded Snake. That's such a bummer. I saw someone call it Stranded Snake on Twitter. Now I'm forgetting who said it, and I always want to credit people whenever I steal their quotes. But it was such a hard quote, Stranded Snake. I was like, that's a good name. I think it might have been Okami on Twitter. Okami. Ah. Oh well. Um, but it's a Twitter account that I follow that posts like news videos. So it was either like I don't follow too many of them. It was either like Shinobi or Okami or
Mm.
Wario or like one of those, one of those accounts. Um, and so I saw that and I saw the clip of the dude with the headband and the bandana and then the lightning flashes and you see the skull and then it's back to the snake looking dude. It was just so fucking hard, dude. It was such a good shot. And then you get to walking and walking and walking. And I'm like, oh, God, is there some way I can just skip that shit and just like take in the story, take in the parts of the game where there's actual gameplay? Um,
You think that he'll go fully in on it again? You think like it's because if like envisioning the Death Stranding one is like going full 100%. You think he's gonna go double down and 100%, or do you think he's eased off and maybe done 70%?
I have no idea, man. It's so crazy how much that game is just reliant on the Decima engine. Like, uh, imagine if Horizon was just walking around and looking at the dinosaurs and not able to fight them. Like that's
That's a bit unfair. You can fight the BTs.
yeah, fucking barely,
I
barely. I mean, hey,
the
let me
further how
actually be
far did you
fair.
get into the game?
That's what I was just about to say. Let me be fair. I played about 15, 20 hours of it. So
Okay,
like
because don't
I
get
I
me
didn't
wrong,
finish the game.
it doesn't turn into Horizon like
Right.
combat, but you it's weird to like describe it. You're having to earn the right to have fun in the game, and that is just because he's just an alter.
Fuck
He's a
that.
very pretentious man. Okay, and we love him for all of his quirks. But it's that thing of like how much can you tolerate? It just comes down to how much can you tolerate of his bullshit to then earn the right to play that. And it comes and goes in things because it's like me, like I'll push a little bit further than you, but even I didn't finish the game because you get to that point and you're like, I don't want to do 2 miles of walking, man. Please, for God, like I'm really intrigued in this story, but this is so much work. And to just be rewarded with a hologram of somebody and then sitting and then pissing in a shower, like, come on, man, give me something.
Well, it's like Remedy has that same pretentious horseshit, but it's a 15-hour game that's kind of fun to play at times. You know what I mean? Like, Control is unbelievably fun to play. Control is pretentious as fuck, dude. Alan Wake 2 is the definition of pretension.
Yeah,
Like,
he puts himself in his game to play himself in his own game to play a carry.
yes.
It's yeah, yep.
Uh, I mean, but it's at the end of the day, I'm not having to play 50 hours of carrying fucking packages. I'm shooting shit. I'm investigating. I'm doing things that are fun to do. Anywho, here's the problem. Death Stranding is critic bait. It is people who love to write fucking words on paper and sniff the words and like get endorphin rushes from fucking listen, dude. It is this is a game that is tailor made for critics. It is tailor made for critics. You're because like you're gonna get into the meaning of life. You're gonna talk about the pandemic for the 50,000th time. It's gonna be all that shit. And yeah, he probably will predict the future again. And we probably do need to study this motherfucker's brain because he's way too accurate with things. It's fucking creepy. And I'm glad that he said he wanted to make a happy game next so that he can write the future in a happy direction or whatever the hell he said. Like that is funny. I give it. I love Kojima. I think Metal Gear Solid 2 is maybe the most well written fucking video game of all time. At least the most like
Yep.
unbelievably prophetic video
Hmm.
game of all time.
Yep.
Um, I love the Metal Gear Solid series. I hate this horse shit.
I I'm gonna draw the comparison to Stalker 2 here, and I think it's gonna be a little bit more difficult because there's gonna be people who enjoyed Stalker 2 a lot more. I think we see these games get more and more beautiful, and that gets in the way of like trying to remember to be fun, if
Mm.
that makes sense. Because like you said, the Decima engine is a looker. It is gorgeous. Every single pieces of the scene that you see running in this trailer could be a movie. You could put that in a theater, and there would be so few people that couldn't understand that that's a game and isn't just a normal movie. But you have in Death Stranding 1 where it's a slog. It's just a slog to play, and that's how I ended up feeling about Stalker 2 as well. It's like, wow, this feels strange. Like I enjoyed going through Stalker 1, and Stalker 2 just feels like a slog in so many ways, and it's just like that's such a weird feeling. And it's the same with like Metal Gear Solid 2 felt so good to play, but Death Stranding doesn't. So like I hope that because the thing is what I was talking about with like the full 100. I hope he just brings it down a notch because even you obviously haven't seen the video playing. There does seem to be a little bit more, you know, pulse pounding action. You have like vehicle combat and stuff like that. Like I'm hoping there's more of them moments. Don't be giving me that moment 80 hours into the game as like the thing of
Right.
like you've earned that. Here, have some fun for 25 seconds because it's like, man, I love you, Kojima, but like Split Fiction, we had a really cool we had a really cool motorcycle moment like 2 hours into the game. Why am I having to wait 80 hours for yours? Like
Well,
that's a bit much.
it and that term is like earned the fun. It's motherfucker, we earned the fun when we paid $70 for your product. What are you talking about? Oh boy. Okay. So Loon, I'm gonna say here's the thing. My opinion on this is totally irrelevant. I think that's top six. I think that there's going to be people who really love big words and who, you know, fucking read like 44 books in 2025 and fucking they're gonna cite fucking historians and cite fucking Carl Jung and talk about the theory of relativity and fucking uh, yeah. Death Stranding 2 will be in the top six because a
Sounds like
bunch
you
of
didn't read
fucking
45 books.
fuck, dude. I here's what I will say. I hope I like it. I hope
Okay.
I'm wrong.
Yep.
I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna force myself to play this shit. I hope I like it.
I have a
I think
question then,
it hit me.
because you said, if I'm not mistaken, if they made a Kingdom Come free, you wouldn't touch it again. You
Mm-mm.
wouldn't go back to that. If it's the same rough feeling Death Stranding 2 than it is to 1, if he announces a third game, are you going to just grit your teeth and bear it because it's Kojima? Is
Yep.
that the only reason that he gets that foot in the door?
Yep.
Yep.
It's so unfair. It's I
I
mean
mean,
it
I can respect it.
it really is like mind control. Like I know exactly what this game is going to be. I'm going to pay $70 just to find out I don't like it, even though I know I don't like it and it hasn't come out yet. So, what are you thinking on it? I'm going top six. Critic bait.
So
What are you thinking?
I have the benefit of me only having three in there so far, whereas you have five.
Yeah.
It would be four with it in there, and I will put it in there for now. And that is also, I don't feel as bad throwing it in there. This is our first prediction. What we should have also said is we'll be doing what, quarterly updates.
Yeah, we'll update these every 4 months or so.
So I don't mind throwing that in there like that. If this was like
So
towards
top
the
six for
end and
you.
these were all out, I would be like, because I think there's going to be a lot of groaning. I know there's a lot of pretentious people out there, but like you said, the 45 beautiful comparison. Um, I don't think they. I don't think there's enough of them in the reviewers like Boathouse. I don't think there's enough of them people who think
Ooh.
that they know enough. Like they're so unless they're just regurgitating opinions, then I just you know I've read so many people's reviews and stuff, and it's just like this isn't really like substance at all. Because
Have you
I'm pretty
seen?
snobbish when I come to read. I read books. um,
That's
and
that's so sad that my opinion of pretentious people who are actually like mildly educated.
we have edumacations, my sir. We read the words. We know where to put our commas. Um, but I don't because there was a lot of like groaning when Death Stranding one came out when it did hit, and I think if there's anything I've kind of noticed with reviewers, they do try to pander towards what people end up like groaning. Like if there's a follow up, they kind of do try to because a lot of them
Mm,
want to just ride the easy wave.
yeah, I
So if
want to
there's
be
a ton
liked.
of
Yeah, that's
people that
true.
end up being like, "Yeah, this is the shit," they'll be like, "Yeah, man, it is the shit, isn't it?" I think with there being so much because people get attacked for everything, you just want to have as easy as an out as you possibly can.
That is true, man.
So they might just be like, "Yeah, it's kind of a bloated mess, but it's Kojima. Buy it now."
You know, and it is the thing, but I will say the amount of mustaches that you see in video game media, like there's no, you can't tell me there's no correlation between mustache and pretension. Everybody with a mustache with no beard is going to give this game a 10 out of 10. There's no, you can't convince me otherwise. You cannot convince me other.
Oh,
Obviously,
just
for all the
alienating all
people,
of the mustachios out
all the
there.
mustache men. Yeah, I hope by now people know I just fuck around, dude. I really want to like Death Stranding too. I really really do. I'll go into it with a no, I won't. There's no chance I'm going into it with an open mind. I'm not even gonna promise y'all that right now. But I I I, I want to like it. So you got it in your top six. I got it in my top six.
Yes.
Okay.
But because it was difficult for me to put it there because it's like in a year with that coming out, and it's perfect that these have lined up. But I don't know if you've done this purposefully to
Yep, I
kind of
did.
bounce off. Why should Death Stranding 2 get in there when this should eat it alive? It should skin it like it does the snakes that you're munching on in the forest. Like it's Kojima's original IP and all of his wacky shit that he thinks up of, and it's just better in every regard.
Every sense of the fucking word. This game is better than Death Stranding. It's a better, it has a lot of the same kind of slow plotting, methodical. Like, dude, Metal Gear Solid 3 is systems heavy as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're having to camouflage yourself and eat what you kill. And like, there's a lot of shit going on in there, cleaning your wounds. And there is a lot going on in Metal Gear Solid 3. It is no doubt going to be the better game, but there's no chance it hits top six. So, unfortunately, yeah, I think it's doubtful that it gets in there. I mean, I hope so. I don't know if I hope so. I really don't know if I hope so. I think I'd much rather make room for because as much as I love like Resident Evil 2 the remake, as much as I love Final Fantasy 7 the remake, I'd be much happier to see new IP and new games in general take the slot of remakes, but I think without a doubt this will be a better game than Death Stranding 2, but it won't get nominated.
Yeah, I have to just put my money where my mouth is as well, because I've said on multiple occasions that remakes and stuff shouldn't be nominated. So I'll put it in doubtful. As much as that pains for
Well,
me to, because it's the kind of thing of like, I get that it came out, and this is where you get that counter argument thing. Should it also just be taken into consideration how enjoyable the game is, whether or not it's a heavy reskin and stuff like that? That's where you can kind of like begin to like put your foot in the door of the argument, whether or not that should have the right to be nominated, and you shouldn't feel
well, I
bad
think
for
that's
feeling it nominated.
yeah, I think that's the argument that everyone made with RE2 and Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So like it should be made again here with this one, but no chance it will.
but yeah. Obviously, this is of like we said, the critics' fun. I would happily
Hmm.
swap them too. I think you would as well. Like,
All day.
I just hope that this sells extremely well for Konami, and they go back and allow me to play the original games like this. Much like with my feelings on RE, I'm still waiting for that RE1 remake in the way that RE2 is. I just want that standard to be set and then move forward.
Bro,
I'm
I would
yearning for it.
I would kill to play MGS 1 and 2.
Mm.
Full third person over the shoulder type mechanics. Yeah, boy. So we both got MGS 3 in the doubtful camp. I don't know what it is where I'm not operating anything when I'm not doing like the back end shit. I just get so chill. I'm just like just talking shit, enjoying this process, not
Yeah,
having to worry about
attacking
it.
mustachio men and
Yeah, dude, one of my best
damn
friends rocks
pretentious
nothing.
people, people who read books, people with mustaches. Anyone who wears
Yeah.
shorts is up next. You guys are gonna get it.
I'm rocking shorts and a fucking long sleeve shirt right now. I wear shorts around the fucking. And that's one of my best friends is a mustache bro. He's a pretentious mustache bro. I love me some good pretentious people and mustache people who aren't pretentious, and also pretentious people who don't have mustaches. I love everybody. Don't harass me, please. Assassin's Creed Shadows is next up on the docket. Um, Loon, I unfortunately have this feeling that no matter how good this game is, it's not getting any love. I think it'll review well. I think we'll look at it and objectively go, yeah, that's really good. Like this is a really well made, polished, fun thing to play. And I think that no matter what, this thing isn't showing up in any kind of top six, even if it's better than every game in that top six.
It's because of them 7 letters. Ubisoft. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what they do, and I know that like sometimes they overreach, sometimes they cookie cutter a lot of stuff. But like, there's so many of their titles, like Odyssey and stuff like that. Odyssey was just a fun game. Like, and this is coming from like people critiqued it of being like tied to the Assassin's Creed name and stuff like that. Like, it was a fun Assassin's Creed game as well. Like, it did a different type of storyline, but more importantly, dude, the gameplay kicked ass. And if you're talking
Spartan
about a
kicking.
game, that's the first and foremost thing of like what 99% of games should be aiming for. Does it play well? Is it fun? And is it enjoyable? And it is. And that is what I don't know how you feel about it from what you've seen. Dude, Shadows looks like that. Shadows looks like because we had Mirage and Valhalla, and they kind of just they wobbled a little bit for me in like the gameplay thing as well as setting. This is just a slam dunk for me. Like it's a great setting to make an interesting story, and the gameplay looks incredible. And the things that they've decided to improve on make sense, and they look well done. The stealth and stuff like that. So yeah, it's never getting into the top six in any year ever. Doesn't matter like what comes out. Unfortunately, it's always going to fall just short because Ubisoft just has that stigma. I don't think Ubisoft can put anything out unless it's a completely. It would have to be from the ground up something they've never made before. A new IP, a new type of
Yeah.
gameplay system. Like it cannot mimic anything they've done before. Is the only way they break out of this mold, and they would have to keep doing that. And I don't think they want to do that. They know that these games. This is the thing as well. The games sell extremely well.
Oh yeah.
So the people that are like, "Oh, this is going to be the death of the series," you guys have been saying that for like 6 games now. Like, you don't understand that. Like,
Valhalla was the best selling one ever.
exactly, this is the thing of like, there's fans of a series that don't need to voice their opinions on the internet because they're just enjoying
That's
the product.
that's most fans.
Exactly. No, exactly. You have those that are certain fan bases like the Souls fans that do they more than often like to
Very loud.
vocalize their opinions and stuff and their takes, and it's like, yeah, cool, man. I empower that. I support that.
Totally.
But you have like, I have tons of people that I know that enjoy Assassin's Creed that have never uttered that they enjoy it. They just play the games and enjoy what they are.
Bro, my one of my best friends is I was hanging out with him was it whenever the Alex Pereira Ankalaev fight was, the last UFC fight that I watched, and we were sitting there and he was talking about Shadows. He doesn't play games like that. I think the last game he bought day one was Hogwarts Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because he's a huge Harry Potter guy, and there's kind of a lot of Assassin's Creed, kind of Ubisofty open world shit in that game. He likes those style of games, and he's hyped as hell about Shadows. You know, he has no idea about any kind of online controversy.
Controversy. Yeah.
Ubisoft might get bought by Tencent. Like he doesn't fucking have any idea about that shit. He's just like, dude, I've been wanting to play Feudal Japan Assassin's Creed since 2009 or
No,
whatever, and now
exactly.
it's
This
finally, yeah,
exact that is the exact thing. That is what a lot of their fan bases is,
Mhm.
people that just view, because there's I'm not gonna throw like shade at your friend. I'm assuming, like you said, he's fairly casual.
Very
He's not
casual.
like
He
paying
would
attention to all the future sci-fi storylines that are going on and all the back end stuff and all the interconnecting stories where they're writing all these different books in the background to connect everything. It's just a huge amount of the Assassin's Creed player base view it as, oh, it's a cool action game set in this historical time. It's like a Kingdom Come Deliverance, but bite size is what it is. It's a lot
right.
more laid back. So it's like, hell yeah, man, feudal Japan, let's go. Can't wait to go to here, can't wait to go to there, and stuff like that. And that's
Yeah,
how I think it should be viewed.
I don't think Twitter and comment sections understand how fucking hard some people work. You know what I mean? And like I'm not trying to be rude or anything.
No,
Like
yeah,
I do think a lot of the people who are the most vocal in comment sections probably have a little bit more time
yeah,
than most.
because
You know what I mean?
yeah.
They're
I don't
they're
have
and I'm
time
not
to be starting feuds on the internet. We do this. And the thing is like, do you have that time as well to play these games though? If you're starting
right.
all of these internet fights, it's
Well,
a weird thing.
but like yeah, and I think if you're spending the majority of your time being hateful online, it's like you don't you won't even have that because I'm saying this I don't work nearly. I'm just talking about my buddy here. I don't work nearly as hard as he does. Like he works his ass off, 60 plus hours a week every single week to make ends meet to pay the mortgage. Like when he gets home, a game like Assassin's Creed is perfect for somebody like him. It's like brain off, game on,
Hmm.
have fun. Like that so many millions and millions and millions of people who consume because he plays FIFA, Assassin's Creed, you know, NCAA football. Like it's casual core, and yeah, I hope the game does well. I hope Ubisoft isn't bought up by fucking Tencent, and then I don't want to see that future for Ubisoft. I would love to see them go private, but not fucking with Tencent
I
having
think
to
that's unfortunate. If we're getting back to like the nerdy looking at things under a microscope,
yeah.
it's the only person who has any interest, because nobody. It's like the thing of, we all as the consumer were looking through like the fence and being like, why isn't anyone buying Crystal Dynamics? look, man, they make good games, but clearly something is wrong there. Like, so they are so heavily mismanaged that nobody wants to touch that. And it's the same with like Ubisoft. Like, they have been flirting, like, oh, Sony, you know you want to buy Microsoft, you know you want, and they're like, no, we
Right, right.
really don't want
We
to.
don't want that
Like,
shit.
you flaunt all these numbers and stuff, but you're such a bloated mess of a company that it would take
They are.
probably a decade plus to get them fixed and into like a ridiculously like workhorse production studio to the point where
Did
it's
you
just like
s-
we don't care. Whereas China's just like, yeah, we'll throw money at it.
mm, did you see the thing that came out today where some shareholders were pissed because they weren't updated that Ubisoft was looking to sell off some of its IP. And that's actually really interesting to me where that might be the way that they get out in general. If they really are collapsing totally, it's just a bankroll. Just fucking here's Splinter Cell for, you know, 30 mil. Here's Assassin's Creed for 400 mil. Here's Far Cry for 100 mil. And then it's sad. Like you don't want to see 10,000 jobs lost like that, but like maybe that's the way they get out without having to be bought out.
Yeah.
Anyway, we could talk about this for, I'm sorry, for, yeah, that's something that's like a 20-minute conversation that we could have in a different thing.
I mean, it's just doubtful. Let's be honest. That's
Yeah.
we'll rip that
Don't get me
band-aid
wrong.
off.
I definitely think that like a I definitely could see a situation where like a Microsoft would want to buy a Splinter Cell or some shit like that. You know, great fucking ties, OG Xbox. That'd be I can't say I'd be against that. Anywho, yeah, doubtful for you for Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, doubtful for me as well.
Cool.
We still got quite a few games, so we'll kind of rapid fire run through some
Yeah,
of these. I
can we
think a lot of them are a lot easier.
quickly pause for a sec?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. All right. So it looks like next up on our docket, and for anybody who's, I have to say this every damn time, but who thinks I'm an asshole and I'm reading through my phone, I got the tier list pulled up on my phone so that I could go over it in real time here
He's making the
as
better
we.
tier list. Boo.
All right. So it looks like the next thing we have up is Crimson Desert. Um, this is interesting. I think this, if it comes out and is mildly polished, I think it'll definitely be one of the best games of 2025. I think there's no chance in hell this comes out in time to. This is one of those Black Myth Wukongs where I don't know if you remember when that initially was shown off in like 2018,
Everyone was like, there's
2019.
no way this is gameplay. There's no
Yeah.
way this is coming out.
I definitely think that people are more locked in on Crimson Desert. Like I think people are aware that yeah, this is actually, this Pearl Abyss, this is a studio that's already made games and they have a huge MMO. They're taking that money, parlaying it into a single player thing. It's gonna be a good game, I think. I think it could be totally buggy because it's just doing way too much shit. But I think they'll take their time. They got money coming in on the MMO, but that's the reason I actually do wind up kind of being a little bit doubtful on this. I don't think it'll release in time to qualify for 2025 Game of the Year. So
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm leaning.
it's kind of a weird one because we've obviously seen so much of it now as well
Hmm.
for what it is, considering we're talking like, oh, this isn't going to really release. It's not like them gameplay trailers were like underbaked. Like you're talking about exploring cities, you're talking about full-fledged combat, you're talking about these actual environments, you're talking about cinematics. Like, how close is this to being like? Is this just it is actually done? Like it is finished, but it's so buggy in trying to maintain a stable frame rate because is this like the entire game plays like Dragon's Dogma 2 when you first went into like the city for the first time and that's the whole game? Like they just can't, they're struggling to make it optimized because there's so much of it already been shown. So you would think that, man, if you're that far along, you should have a release date by now. Like, really,
Yeah.
for any other game, it would have a date being like, yeah, November 15th. Like, so I'm gonna throw mine in doubtful.
Yeah. Same. Lock me in on doubtful. I think we'll have this talk again next year, and I think that can change things quite a bit. But 2025, I don't think it's going to release in time.
Yep. All right, Mario Kart, whatever, 1200.
Yeah, so Mario Kart 9, man. I mean, this is I think this is a lock for top 6. I think that this in my opinion, it's going to be one of those things where the Sonic game probably comes out. We look at the Sonic game and we're like, yeah, that's the better game, but somehow it just doesn't have the impact that a Mario Kart 9 does. And I guess it's really not a somehow thing. You're talking about a launch of a new system. This is going to coincide with the launch of the new system. You're going to, I would assume, it's. I actually thought about making a video about this. The rough concept was handheld. There's there's no mass market for handhelds. There's a mass market for Mario,
Ooh,
and
okay.
it's because my whole idea of it's like, dude, people are gonna pick up that Switch 2 to play this game and to play. I think we don't have it in here because it hasn't been officially announced. I don't think it's a low likelihood that we get a 3D platformer as well from Nintendo this year. Like, I think it's a pretty strong likelihood that we get this Mario Kart 9, Metroid, and either 3D Mario or 3D like
I
fucking
mean, yeah.
Donkey Kong.
Yeah, because what people also seem to also forget, I know PlayStation gets clowned on this recently as being, remake, remaster machine. Dude, Nintendo are the they did that first. They've been doing it for years and years. So even if
Yeah.
they don't have a new title announced, it really isn't any skin off their back to just be like, yeah, here's this beloved title that you've bought 45 times, buy it 46 times. And it will run
Well,
better, it will look better, and it will play better. And people
well,
will like it. You think
I'm
a
saying
new?
all new
You
games.
think new?
Yeah.
I don't
I
think
think we're good
I don't think there will be one, personally.
because you got to keep in mind whenever the Switch launched, it launched with a new Zelda Breath of the Wild, it launched with a new Mario Odyssey, and then it also launched with Mario Kart, which was, released on the Wii U, but really gained its popularity with the Switch because nobody bought the Wii U. Um, but I think that I don't think they're going to launch a system without bangers, man. And we already know about Metroid Prime 4, which is also going to come to Switch,
Mm-hmm.
but that'll be a launch window title for the Switch too, we assume. We got the Pokemon game on the way. We got Mario Kart 9. I think, dude, the, here's the. I know we can talk shit about Nintendo and it's fun to do it because who cares? But Nintendo does not fuck around with software at
No,
all. They do
no,
not. They do not pull this Xbox PlayStation shit. Like, you're not gonna have a year where you're looking for games to play that are
no,
exclusive to your system.
no. Yeah. The thing is, the only counter I have to that is you're talking like Nintendo rarely misses with their software, of course, but I've always felt there's been an element of because Sony first party stuff in the beginning of their generations was kind of weak in like PS4, like the Order 1886 and Knack and stuff, and the same with over on Xbox's side with Rise, Son of Rome, and stuff like that. And there wasn't all that much in the way of like chunky third party stuff like it is now. Like the competition in the market now is so more potent, if that makes sense, to the point where I don't think two Nintendo titles can muscle their way into a top six. I think
Oh,
there's
okay,
so
okay.
that's my point. And that's why I said with Metroid because it's something different. If you're gonna
New,
put
yeah,
something up there, have it be something that's kind of been dormant for a while. It's a beloved
yeah.
IP and it's different. Mario Kart, it's gonna sell shitloads of copies. Of course it is. For Christ's sake, it's Mario Kart. On top of it being a brand new, system, it will be one of the system sellers.
Mhm.
But I don't. No, it can't. For me, it. it's almost in line with like the Elden Ring thing of like, in my personal opinion, like it can't just walk into top six because it has the Nintendo name, man. Like it just, I can't have that for me personally. And I hope that critics don't just let that walk in because they know
Yeah.
that they just want to get brownie points with Nintendo. The only way I backtrack on this is if, like you was talking about with the Horizon thing, if it's something completely like this has never been done before, you somehow make a Mario Kart like Horizon game and it has all these bells and whistles and stuff, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's pretty creative. Then yeah, but if it's just another kart racer with just a couple more tracks, a new racer or hit, it's like, man, this no, not for me. I don't think that should just get the easy top six thing.
Yeah. I no, I totally agree. Once again, not our list,
Mm-hmm.
predicting for the critics, and I do predict critics are, like I said, I mean, we got to go back and readjust this because I have one, two, three, four, five. I already got my six, and we're not done with this shit
No,
yet.
you
So
got
I'm
five.
probably gonna have to. I got Mario Kart, Death Stranding 2,
Oh,
Split
you're counting.
Fiction.
My bad. You're counting Mario Kart. Obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. There you go.
I
Cool.
think
Cool.
Mario Kart's almost a lock, man.
Okay.
But we'll see. Oh, I actually, fuck. I just saw that I accidentally put Fable in here. We'll just skip over that one. Um, all right. Yeah. So you got Mario Kart is doubtful on yours.
Yep.
Cool.
I just think it's
Pirate
way.
Yakuza.
It's just way too competitive of a year. I think like
Yeah.
third party. It's kind of weird. It's like third party games have. I know they're the things that sell over time.
Hmm.
They're not the system sellers, and they end up making the ends meet and the connectors and stuff. But I think the quality of third party games has just risen exponentially compared
Agreed.
to
Yeah.
previous generations. It's no longer like, say, The Last of Us, and it's like, yeah, that's the flagship for the PlayStation. That's showing like every squeezed bit of power because it doesn't feel like they do that anymore. I don't know if you feel that way.
No, totally agree. Yeah, we barely get those games anymore. Um, a game that we do get very, 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 very frequently is Yakuza. And yeah, we got the Pirate in Hawaii. I think we can go ahead and just drop this one in doubtful for me. It's no chance that I mean last year fucking Infinite Wealth couldn't get in.
Yeah.
And it was like at a 90 on Metacritic. This is like at a 80. There's
Yep.
no chance this thing's getting in there.
I think this this style of the RGG games, this is going to be the stepchild now, moving forward. The turn based stuff seems to just sell better. It seems to review a little bit better. Um, seems to resonate with people, and this will just be that thing of where like, yeah, we'll just appease to the original fans and not have it be turn based and just have the wacky crap that you would expect from a Yakuza game. So yeah, I think I'm right there with you with Doubtful, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's one of my favorite games of
Yep.
the year. It might even end up being my game of the year when everything's all said and done. I still want to play a little bit more of it. I still want to go and dick around in the I actually have been dicking around in the open world, just like turning on a podcast and going around and doing some different fucking mini games and like I really, really enjoy that game a whole hell of a lot, but unfortunately, it's not quite critic bait. A little bit too fun. Um Monster Hunter Wilds is the next one up on our docket. This is really an interesting one, Loon. Came out, was totally busted on PC, as a lot of triple A games are. Um,
Yep.
wasn't all that great on console either. It's not like it wasn't a mess or anything. I played it on day one. It wasn't horrible on console performance wise whatsoever, but definitely muddy and definitely not like a visual powerhouse or anything like that. But with all of that being said, it's still one of the best reviewed games of 2025, and I mean, maybe the most popular game of 2025.
Yeah. I would assume so with how hot them beta numbers were and
Yeah,
alpha number. Like, it's kind of the thing I find weird though is how many people played them the beta and stuff. Like, how refinedly cut was that beta then? Because there was no complaints of any of these issues when the beta was launched, other than PSN going down and stuff. But that's got nothing to do with Capcom.
right.
Like,
This thing peaked
how crazy is that bait and switch then? And
this thing peaked at 1,384,000 concurrent players on Steam. That
that's
is
Steam.
fucking
It's
dude,
weak,
just for
like the weakest port of it, arguably. People are saying like it runs like shit on PC.
just for some perspective, that is over 1,100,000 more players than Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Like, is that's not even, that doesn't even, I understand one's a single player game, one has multiplayer functionality, but like, you got to also keep in mind that for the majority of the time, while this peaked at 1 point whatever million, that was people playing through the little single player so that they could get to the multiplayer, which there's still, there's multiplayer functionality even within that, but it's just, it's, that is a humongous hit. And at some point, popularity does have to get factored into this. Do I think quality wise, it's on par with a game of the year contender? No. But I don't think that a lot of games that win game of the year are on par quality wise with a game of the year contender. Popularity is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, it's just at the end of the day, you're talking about numbers. If you have 5,000 critics who are voting, at some point it becomes what game did all 5,000 of these critics play? And if the most popular game of the year is Monster Hunter, then most likely at least 50% of the 5,000 played Monster Hunter.
Something we also do need to keep into consideration as well is that you think of how many games critics have to review throughout the year. They're gonna probably stick to the fonder memories when they get to it as well. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
like if Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was like a masterpiece to somebody and then they played Monster Hunter Wilds, but they played it with their group of people that they love hanging out with, that also
Right.
resonates even stronger and stronger to the point where, like, when you get to the end of the year, you're still playing Monster Hunter Wilds because they're constantly giving you content, so it's fresh. It's still fresh in your mind. You're still hyped about it and stuff like that. So I could see this getting top six
Y-
personally.
You made a really great point there because, like, by the end of the year, that's when the game's going to be at its best. So it's going to be in people's memory fresh, polished. Yeah, I'm
Because
going to
they
go top
don't
six as well.
because they don't vote on it now either. The
Right.
voting starts towards the end of the year, which everybody needs to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So
You going top six for Wilds?
I'm pausing a trailer at the moment, is what I'm doing. But yeah, it'll be top six for me. Where are you throwing yours?
I'm I think I'm going top six as well.
Okay. Can't wait for
I
your
got like
argument towards the end.
I
This
know.
list is getting mighty long.
I know it. All right. Next up on the docket we have Expedition 33. This is one that has that kind of game of the year potential written all over it. This could change the landscape for turn-based RPGs in general. Um, I think the landscape is already shifting back towards a world where that is going to become a very popular genre, but there's limits to the popularity so far. You saw that it bursted through in a crazy way with Baldur's Gate 3, of course. But with Baldur's Gate 3, I would argue that 90% of the people playing that game are playing it despite the turn-based combat. There's I shouldn't say despite the turn-based combat, but they're playing it with the turn-based combat isn't the reason people play Baldur's Gate 3. The choice, the consequence, the variety of the dialogue options, the different romance options, the branching paths. Like that seems to be the appeal of Baldur's Gate 3. I think the turn-based combat is just a way to play the game, a way to engage with the combat.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see something like Metaphor where the turn-based combat that's the game. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing Metaphor, you're playing it because you want to play a turn-based game. There's really not I mean, you of course you're playing it for the story as well, but in terms of gameplay, there's really not much else you're going to see or much else you're going to get out of it other than the turn-based combat. And those games, they sell well. They sell a couple million copies, a few million copies. Is there any world where Expedition 33 takes it to a whole new, like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Um,
this could be a breakout hit that we just have never seen before.
Sales wise, no. I don't see this like smashing metaphor. Players, yes. It's going straight into Game Pass. So immediately there's no commitment. This could have the same effect on how like Yakuza blew up on Xbox and stuff like that because they put um the games into Game Pass and stuff. Like you give people the hit as it were. Um it looks pretty as well because this isn't like say putting Persona into Game Pass where it didn't really do much for a lot of people because it's kind of like the same, whereas this looks like a Western game, so it'll probably get more eyes on it because people may not be like, oh, they may even download this game and not realize that it's turn based because of that art style, and then they'll be put into a fork road of, oh, I don't like turn based, or they'll be like, oh, I'll give it a shot because they're like, oh, I like the look of the game, maybe I'll enjoy the rest of the game, and it could expose people to the genre, and I think that's also why they've gone down this art style. They're hoping to maybe sink their teeth into untapped players because you think of how many millions of people buy games. 2 million isn't, 1, 2 million. That's fairly low numbers when you're talking about things that make huge impacts, huge sales and stuff. So there's a ton of untapped gamers out there that could grab themselves. So I hope that this does blow up because it will also show turn-based JRPGs that you don't have to rely on like anime aesthetics. You can
Right.
do something a little bit more serious, a little bit more. I hate to use this, but a little bit more budget, because as much as I loved Metaphor and like the look of it and stuff, some of it is dated. When you're going around and like when you're going through like the desert and stuff like it, it's like Atlas is meant to be in like that top three pedigree for turn-based RPGs, and it feels like you're cutting corners in some of these things. And it's like the animation of the cutscenes and stuff is incredible, but the actual environments kind of fall flat in some places, or they're very uninspired, very safe. So,
Well, it's once again the thing we're talking about where when you know your ceiling is 4 or 5 million copies sold,
yep,
you can't expense a game to
yep,
sell for 30 million players, you know? So hopefully that's the thing where I really, really hope this thing makes a boatload of cash. This is all going to depend on reviews
yep,
if it sells well. If this thing hits like at a 9.2, which is fucking crazy, I understand that, but like if it hits around Metaphor numbers review wise, I think it'll triple what Metaphor sold. Just because it's the aesthetic is so much more appealing. Um,
yeah.
I'm gonna go top six. I
Ooh.
know that's crazy. I got to sort this shit out. I'm starting to stack up here.
Oh man. Do you know what? With what's left on this list, yeah, screw it. Top six. I don't think anything that kind of spoils, yeah, I
I'm
don't.
struggling, man.
I don't think that gets topped by anything personally.
I all right. Well, we'll just keep it moving. Because I will go ahead and straight into Doom. Go ahead and put Doom in my top six. I got to sort this shit out. This is a problem, man. See, once again, this is what I'm talking about. Doom isn't a game for me. Expedition 33 isn't necessarily a game for me. Monster Hunter Wilds wasn't a game for me. Mario Kart 9 is not a game for me. Death Stranding 2 is not a game for me. Metroid Prime 4 is not a game for me. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't necessarily even a super me ass year,
Yep.
but this has got some bangers. And this year has some fucking big dogs. And Doom the Dark Ages looks nasty.
Did you play the other two?
No, I played a little bit of it and I don't really like first person shooters without a story. I know it's got like somewhat of a story, but like
No,
I want a real story, a Wolfenstein.
that's generous. It has a story in air quotes, but yeah,
Hmm.
it's definitely a backseat. Okay. Yeah, it's so weird because did either of the previous two get like
Yep.
nom
2020 Doom Eternal did, I believe. I can look it up real quick.
because it was a massive thing what they accomplished in Doom 2015. I remember it was 2015, right? Or was it 2016? It was one of the 2 years.
16, yeah.
2016. Um, as overused as a phrase as this is, it was a return to form. It was them showing that Doom can be modernized and yet somehow keep that brutality, fast-paced nature that you expect, and also remain fun and relevant. And Eternal kind of keep that ball rolling a little bit more. They got a little bit freaky with it, with the traversal and stuff. And it's kind of comical to envision Doom Guy doing half of that shit that you're asking him to do, considering how bulky of a fellow he is, asking him to parkour and hang on to walls. But this it does look really good. The Dark Ages, like spectacle, everything just looks like it's come full circle. It doesn't look like they're half-assing anything. It just looks like
And
they're turning everything up to 11, and it's kind of that thing of like it's going to be a kick-ass game. Where do they go after this though? Like what? How much more can you squeeze out of Doom? Like it's crazy to think that. I know, but like where do you go now? You've gone to the future and now you're at the past. Like and you've slayed both of them. Like
yeah. I and there's a story this year. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying it's going to be the most revolutionary thing like you talked about, but that's going to get me in the door. I'm going to play it. Well, of course it's on Game Pass, so like that's appealing as well, but I might just buy a copy of it, just jump into this thing, have it in the collection, play through the story, have a good time. Like I love the Wolfenstein games, and I know that this is definitely a different style, a different pace of
yeah,
first person shooter, but I'm definitely down for a first person shooter if it has a narrative. I even with that was my issue with Monster Hunter Wilds this year. I liked it, but I don't want to just kill a bunch of monsters just to kill monsters. Like I want something,
that's
some
so
kind of narrative hook.
hilarious that you say that. As the criticisms I've seen is that the story gets in the way of it. If
Yeah,
some
and I mean
people's
they,
enjoyment, they're like, "What the fuck? I want to just kill monsters."
yeah, I get that, and there is a pretty prominent story that I could understand people getting
Mm.
annoyed with, but yeah, Doom, I'm gonna lock in for my top six. I'm gonna sort this out here in a second, but I'm gonna lock it in.
I've thrown it into doubtful,
Okay,
and that
okay,
hurts for me personally because it is one of my more hyped games. But it's the thing of like very few games can do like what Elden Ring somehow has the allure to do. Of like, there's going to be a ton of people that no matter how good this game is, will just look at it as another Doom game and may go
yeah.
in with the mindset of like with how you experienced Doom Eternal and stuff, where you're like, yeah, it's not for me. So there may be just people willing to look to write it off immediately.
Yeah, and it doesn't have that hardcore fan base. I mean, it has a hardcore fan base, but not to the type of where, you're gonna bully it into game of the year and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right, Wuchang.
Wuchang Fallen Feathers. So this is that it was revealed at the Xbox showcase a while ago. It's a Souls-like game. I just threw it in here because it's a prominent Souls-like game coming out in 2025, and those always seem to kind of, there's always one or two every year that pop up, bubble into game of the year realm, maybe not necessarily nominee territory, but within the territory of nominee territory. Like they're just under in that little bubble of lies of P or a something
It's
of
like
that
Laws of
ilk,
the
like a Black
Fallen
Myth Wukong.
remake
Yeah.
thing of or whatever the hell they classify that as. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going doubtful, of course, but I wouldn't be surprised if this blew up. I became something much bigger than we expect. But
Mm.
from what I've seen, there's nothing that looks necessarily remarkable.
No, because Stellar Blade never made it last year, right?
No.
So this has no chance, in my opinion. And don't get me wrong, I don't think Stellar Blade was like a Souls-like thing, but it had a ton of revering fans that shouted it from the
Mm.
rooftops. But
Yeah. And there's no half naked chicks in Wuchang. I don't think.
So both
South of Midnight.
doubtful. Cool.
Yeah, both doubtful on Wuchang. South of Midnight's next up.
Yep. Looks like it.
I think this game's going to be really, really good. I think it's going to be 8 out of 10 good, though. I don't really think this has I don't think this has a chance of crossing into that like 9 out of 10 range for most places. I think this is going to cap out at like a really good Enslaved Odyssey to the West, a really good, Dante's Inferno, like a really good old school character action-ish 8-hour, 12-hour campaign. I don't think it's going to be anything that blows you away from a gameplay standpoint. I think the story's probably going to be really good, but I think it's going to be in that realm, of your Bayonettas, your Dante's Infernos, your Devil May Cries. Which some of those at times you can get like a DMC5 that might can kind of
Nah.
contend for Game of the Year, but I don't think South of Midnight's going to fall in that
My
camp.
my thought process on the matter is what we've all got to keep in mind is that no matter whether or not you like it or not, it's tied to Xbox's name. So what needs to happen is it needs to be best in class when it's under that umbrella kind of thing. Because you think back on Days Gone and how good people enjoyed that game, but it still falls to like the 80s and stuff. So I think it's going to fall into the realm of that, if that makes sense. It's going to be kind of in that same like Days Gone thing. It's never going to be a Game of the Year contender. It's just going to be a strong showing from Compulsion, personally.
Yeah. So you're saying you just think console manufacturers kind of get judged a little bit
They're
harsher? Well,
and they should be.
specifically PlayStation and Xbox, yeah.
They should be. You're putting yours in doubtful as well, yeah.
Yeah, doubtful for
So
mine, for sure.
yeah, they should be. Is like going back to that point of we've gone from an era of first party like titles should have was the thing that was like here is what our system does. It pushes it to the brink and beyond and stuff like that. Whereas now it doesn't seem to do that anymore. They kind of just don't really care and bother as much. Especially Xbox, like I'll happily throw them under the bus for that. Like they don't give a shit about pushing it to the max and stuff like that.
No. Yeah.
PlayStation kind of did that with the PS4 and then just began caring less and less because they're like, why are we putting so much into that when it's just going to sell regardless because
Yeah.
it's tied to our name. Our name has weight, so just go with it. So
Well, yeah, and I mean, it becomes a thing when it's like, well, shit, you're releasing your games on my platform. Well, we're just gonna make 400 live service games, and we'll take the fucking 30% rip of all your shit.
yep,
Um, what is next up? Hell is
hell
us.
is us.
Hell is us. That's your baby, Loon. This is coming from the ex Deus Ex. I forget his name. I mean, listen, definitely some talent over there on that team working on Hell is Us. I think when I look at this and when I hear about this, every thread, every bit of information I hear about this makes me more and more I couldn't be less interested in this game. However, I there's a handful of critics out there, the same people that love their FromSoft stuff, that love games like this where you have zero information,
Mhm.
you never have any idea where to go. And this is a game that its entire marketing beat is we are not going to tell you where to go. So, hell is us. Hell is us.
Yep.
What are you thinking, Lone?
Well, we kind of saw that as well with to a lesser extent Stalker 2 last year. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
game that holds your hand in the slightest. Like it will happily feed you to the wolves, pun intended. Like it it just will. And that's kind of what they're going for here. And it like you said, for some people like yourself, where it's just like they're marketing it as we're not gonna like give you any help whatsoever. It's, do what you need to do or just don't progress. Don't play our game. And yeah, I'm interested in it. It looks unique in what it's trying to do, so I'll be there.
Now
But there's no
don't get me
way
wrong.
this gets top six.
No, don't get me wrong. If they were marketing it as like, oh, this game is ultra brutal, but we don't tell, or if they were saying we're going to tell you where to go, but it's going to be really hard to get there. You're going to run into a lot of like, sure, I'm down for that. But the idea of just like not knowing where to go in a game, I shout out to all of you out there who like that shit. That is unbelievable to me that y'all find that shit fun. But hey, that's why we all have.
It's what I'll say for liking stuff like that. It's more getting your environmental storytelling as a way of
Y'all love
unfolding a
them
game's
damn
narrative
rocks.
than it is actually getting a narrative.
Yeah.
So, and don't get me wrong, I wouldn't want that in every game, of course, because that would be like, holy shit, that's very lazy.
Hmm.
But every now and then it is nice to just be like, put the contextual clues together yourself, work out where you need to go, put in a little bit more effort and stuff like that. I don't mind that as long as it's within a relative smaller time frame. I don't want like 40 hours, 50, 70, 90 hours of that shit. Thank you.
So next up we have Slay the Spire 2, I believe.
Yep.
Both doubtful on Hell is Us. Um, this is your bread and butter, ain't it?
I mean, 100% it. Um, I even went and like this is gonna, you know how much I do not care for mobile gaming. I went and bought it there, and I've like that close to 100%ing it again. Like, yeah, card roguelikes are just my shit. I love being handed a set of rules and just trying to find ways to break it. Because it's like right now I'm playing through Balatro as it got added to Game Pass and stuff, and it's just fun just snapping its spine in half and just working out how to absolutely abuse that game. Having no knowledge, and this is the thing, I have no interest in poker. I have no knowledge of poker, and it's just working out how to break it from the game's mechanics. And I think that speaks wonders of how good your game design is when you can get somebody to get invested in something like poker while having no interest in poker whatsoever.
Are you thinking this has any shot in a
No,
year stacked? Okay.
not
That's
not
kind of where I'm at.
not any. Oh, we're not doing Fable.
No, it's not coming out this year.
Okay. Goodbye, Fable. You get to the end of the list, my buddy. I also agree it is not coming out this year.
No, they officially announced it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Makes sense.
Um, yeah, but I just think that Slay the Spire 2, like I'm sure it's gonna review crazy well. But when I'm looking at this top six, I'm already having trouble with my top six of AAA, like humongous, massive marketing budgets. I don't know if an indie's gonna crack top six of 2025, which is a bummer. But it was the same thing with 2023. I think it was the same thing with 2020.
I'm also wondering, like, what did the first game land at?
Oh, I think it
Quickly.
was like close to a nine across the board, wasn't it?
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. I think it was really up there because, I mean, that thing was hyped to the moon.
Sorry. Right, what I think will happen, because I was just checking, I think it'll be like a Darkest Dungeon 2 thing. It's the double edged sword of doing a sequel to a roguelike is that when people pour so much, because what people forget, because you see this in the Isaac community, Isaac players get very angry when they aim to make the game easier and stuff like that because they've obviously mastered the game and it's just like no, I want like more challenge, more, I need to conquer. And it's just like you need to understand that you're such a small minority. The casual players don't master the games like you people do. So I think they a lot of the reception will be from people having to start over again, and then there being differences in the game, and there being like a little bit of an upset that way. So I don't think it'll make top six.
So the first one's sitting at a fucking 89.
Yeah, that was an incredibly
Ooh.
reviewed game. It was one of the because it was kickstarted, right? I believe as well.
Think so, yeah.
Cool.
So we both got that in doubtful. Next up, we have Marvel Rivals. Can't forget about Marvel Rivals. Came out December of last year. One of the most popular games on planet Earth. And that is not even hyperbole. It's fucking crazy the way that that thing just ballooned, man. An absolute behemoth amongst mortal men. Um,
I mean, it was
is there
kind of
any?
inevitable.
You think so?
Overwatch 2's player base is in the dirt and up for grabs. They jumped over to Valorant. Valorant isn't what you would want as like a direct like moving from. It's more CS:GO than it is Overwatch. So there's just yeah, people were yearning for something like this that tune into that kind of game. And with it being the Marvel property tied onto it, that's just chef's kiss for that.
But I do think there's so many examples of like solid live service games just failing. And then also there's so many examples of Marvel just consistently failing lately. It's like I think this team needs a little bit of credit for figuring out that perfect blend of great character models, of course, obviously
Yeah.
Overwatch inspired, but incredible character modeling, incredible stickiness to the gameplay. Like it keeps people engaged constantly. That player base does not dwindle, man. It is really impressive. Um, I don't think it's going to be a nominee for Game of the Year just because it launched in 2024 and we saw, I think, the only time ever a Game of the Year nominee was from the previous year was Smash Brothers. And I mean, that's fucking Smash Brothers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I'm a little bit like I won't throw them as much of a bone because of, like I said, the Overwatch 2 community being up for grabs. And I know you drew the comparison of like even Marvel throwing out live service products. They went like and threw Avengers out there when like Destiny 2 was at its peak. It was very stupid and naive to think that you can unwrestle. It's like trying to go like when WoW was in its you know, at its peak. Any MMO that tried to go head to head with that is just futile. You're just
But
laying
shouldn't the
yourself
team get
out.
some credit? Shouldn't the team get some credit for observing the market and knowing when to launch?
No, that's what I mean. That's what I would give them
Oh,
like
okay.
credit for. Is
Okay.
the fact that they waited and they knew when was the perfect time to release this, and it was like Overwatch 2 is in the dirt. They
Yeah,
have an
totally.
entire like millions of players played that game. Like it was absurd, and there's been not really much release since. So yeah, credit to them for that.
All right. Loon, so we're both doubtful on Marvel Rivals.
Yep.
Shout out, you know, I, we're gonna talk in a second about another 2024 game that was incredible. That's probably not gonna get nominated, unfortunately. But from nomination to does it exist at all is what we're gonna be talking about here. Hollow Knight Silksong, is it gonna come out, Loon? That's pretty much the only question.
Nope.
All right,
This
so
is the
let's
thing
just go
as
ahead and
well.
move.
Of do you know what I'll say about this game?
Uh,
It is when it comes out, it's going to be the thing of like it can never meet expectations because you've left it for so long. If
yeah.
anything, keeping it in the oven this long has been detrimental for it from a gameplay perspective as well. Because what this smells of to me is an artist painting a picture, stepping back, and then being like, "Oh, I need to like tweak a tiny bit of shadowing here," and then stepping back. Oh, I need to tweak a little bit here, stepping back, and it's just like, just put it out, man. Like nothing is ever going to be a perfect product from top to bottom. Like the more you tweak and you think that you're actually perfecting it, the more it's probably eating into something else. So they need to just kick it out, man. I get it, like release the sentiment of release it when it's ready, but like it's a Metroidvania,
So
man.
are you under the impression that it's going to release at all?
I think
Because that's kind of where
it will come out, but it's gonna be that thing of like the who's gonna care at that point? as well.
Do you
Like
think it's
so
going to come
many.
out this year?
No,
That's where I'm at.
no,
It's like I don't think it's dropping this year. That's why I don't
because
think
it
it's
would have
getting nominated.
been shown at that Xbox showcase with it having such heavy ties to Xbox with Game Pass, right?
Unless I
Unless
guess there is one other option.
Switch
Does
2
it get
launch title.
switched to launch title?
I mean, if they can land
Still
that,
on Game
then
Pass,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah, yeah, of course, of course. If they can land that, that will do them wonders. That will probably soften the blow of having to wait so long and people being like, "Oh, it's not as good as like having to make us wait this long for that product," because it will have that buzz
Mhm.
with it. I think that's the only thing that they can do to really save a lot of face with that.
Yeah. Well, we don't got long to wait on that one. I'm really, really interested to tune into that live stream. Um, Next up on the docket, we have Hyper Lightbreaker. So this is one kind of, we're talking about they usually reserve a spot for an indie. And
Right.
this is the follow-up to Hyper Light Drifter,
Mm-hmm.
which I think was reviewed pretty much across the board around a 9 range. So can the follow-up be even better than around the 9 range? It is expanding a lot from the first one. This is like a full-blown 3D roguelike action RPG compared to the kind of top-down, 2D roots of the OG. So, is it breaking into a new stratosphere of mass appeal? And can you keep the same quality while also gaining a new, range of popularity, a new range of consumers that you could possibly sell this thing to? Unfortunately, as we've sat here and talked about with many other games, I don't know if this is the year where any indies are going to get any love whatsoever for Game of the Year. So I'm going to say doubtful, unfortunately. Looks really good, though.
Yeah, I'm with you then. It's it's a very very tough year, but on top of that as well, is it their best work?
We
I
shall
don't
see.
know. I don't
I
know.
don't know either. Um, so the next one up, we had Ninja Gaiden 4, and also just a heads up, I got Ninja Gaiden 4. There's one, and then there's an image all the way at the other end. I don't know if that's showing up on yours.
I don't know. I'll have to look at
S-
it.
Yeah, so the two aren't together.
Mhm.
But yeah, anywho. So Ninja Gaiden 4, next up on the docket. Um, I don't really have a lot to say on this, and I just doubt it. I don't think this is gonna. I don't think this is gonna hit any sort of game of the year.
No,
It's Ninja Gaiden.
no.
I cannot wait to play it. I loved going back and playing through Black 2. That was incredible. Cannot wait for 4. Probably not going to be anywhere near game of the year contender.
No, it's nice to have it back.
Mm.
It's nice that the series is back in everybody's hands and stuff, and it's cool to see them doing that. But I don't. What did the new one, not the new one, the whatever their re-release remake thing came out. That didn't land like red hot, did it? People were just like, yes, it was nice.
It was pretty red hot. I mean, maybe not red hot, but orange hot. It was getting close to red hot. But yeah, it's not one of those game. It's not even a game that necessarily I think is aspiring for that level of critical acclaim.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a cool ass, fun ass video game.
Right, and that's fine.
Mhm.
So doubtful from you and doubtful from me.
Yes, sir.
And then Mindseye is up
Um,
next.
we can rapid fire this one as well, man. Doubtful for me. I think that it's the same thing. Unfair expectations. Leslie Benzies, former GTA producer, new studio, launch a new game. Wait, the open world's not actually open. Wait, you know what I mean? There's going to be just the immediate unfair expectations. I
Yeah.
think the story kind of looks a little bit generic, from the whole AI angle and all of that going on. I don't think anything that was shown off looks incredibly like revolutionary. I'm pumped to play it just because I'm pumped to play anything that's not a guy with a sword right now. But,
It just
it
looks like
doesn't
a
look.
video game as video game. Is the best way of like me describing it. Like having
Mhm.
watched the trailers and stuff when we saw it at the showcase, it doesn't need to be the world's most immersive, polished product, and we shouldn't really like draw the comparisons to GTA as we've constantly chimed on about this episode. I think just let it be its own thing. But
Mhm.
that being said, I do not see it reaching top six.
No. I'm like I said, I'm day one pumped to play that thing. Pumped to play that thing. But I don't see game of the year future on it at all. Now, a game that is game of the year, without a doubt, is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Unfortunately, it was the game of the year last year, in a year that it actually could have been nominated, with very, very, very few options. Not very few options, but it was last year, it actually could have got in there. This year, there's no chance.
Yeah, I mean, I would go even further and say that you know I don't think it would have made it last year either, but that's just personal preference. I thought
What was in there last year?
it was a good like 8 out of 10 game. For me, it's not a 9 like it is for you in the 90s.
Hmm.
Um, it was like Metaphor, Elden Ring, Black
Yeah,
Myth
Black Myth
Wukong,
Wukong, it could have got
Balatro.
in over Black Myth. I think it could have got in over Black Myth and Balatro. Love Balatro, but and Erdtree. I mean,
Mm.
I don't know. I think it could have got in over a lot of things, but also I'm very, very biased. I fucking love that video game. Um, but yeah, so we're both in the doubtful camp on that one.
I'll throw mine in the doubtful. Are you throwing yours in the doubtful?
Yeah, it's not going to make it. It's the unfortunate thing coming out in 2024. And even if it came out in 2025, there's just too many heavy hitters on the horizon. Like Hades 2, for instance. This is probably the biggest question mark of the entire list. If it goes 1.0, it's probably game of the year.
What contender or overall?
Winner.
No,
You don't think?
no, no chance. No,
Okay.
I don't think so. I think it could make top six. I don't think it'd be winner
I think the
personally.
only thing I'm even discussing in my head right now is if it's going to go full launch this year. If it leaves early access, it's top six, for in my opinion, without a doubt. But I don't think it's going to leave early access this year.
It's a tough one. It is definitely a tough one. No, I don't think it will either.
Yeah.
I don't think
So
they're not in any rush. Is the thing as well? Is that it's the benefit of releasing into early access. There's no rush for them. So I'm gonna throw mine in doubtful. Where are you throwing yours?
I'm going to go doubtful as well. I don't think it's going to, I think it'll stay in early access, launch early 2026, full launch.
2, 4, 6. So I already have my six.
I got like 40.
6, 8. You have 9. So you
Oh,
need to
God.
cut 3. And I also need to get onto my game of the year from that
All right.
6.
I'll make my cuts and then we'll do our game of the year
Yep,
picks together. How about
that's
that?
fine. Yep.
All right. There's a couple easy cuts off the top. Ghost of Yotei, I'm
Okay.
cutting.
Do you want
I
to give
don't
a
think that.
reasoning as to why that gets cut?
Yeah, I don't. I think there's a strong chance it doesn't release this year.
Okay.
And I also think that just when you're looking at Ghost of Tsushima at like an 84 on Metacritic,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of these other games are getting close to 84 range. We got Split Fiction that's already at a 90, Kingdom Come 2 that's close to a 90. Anything Nintendo is a 9 automatically. Um,
Yep, that's
I
fine.
think that Doom the Dark Ages looks like I am also gonna cut Monster Hunter Wilds.
Mm-hmm.
I, oh, that feels stupid, dude. Yeah, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up.
Ooh.
Have you already cut it?
No, I was dragging it.
All right,
It
let's
did
put
the
that back.
classic Capcom thing. It held on. Good on you.
Let's put that one back. Oh God. I'm gonna cut Metroid. Here's gonna be my reasoning for cutting Metroid. A common thing that's gonna be heard in reviews is a quote that says, and you can tell it was made for Switch, for the original Switch. Like, so it's gonna be downgraded graphically, downgraded performance wise. I don't think it's gonna have that like, you know, Switch to ism that the big leap that Mario Kart 9 is going to have when you're playing Forza Horizon with fucking Mario.
Okay.
And
All right.
honestly, if I,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
you know what, I'm cutting Mario Kart as well. And here's going to be my reasoning. A game that Nintendo has for Game of the Year is a game that Nintendo is going to release that's going to be a Game of the Year contender. We don't know about it yet.
Yeah, that's a fair
It's either going to be
observation.
3D It's either going to be 3D Mario or 3D Donkey Kong. I think it'll be a holiday launch, 3D Mario, 3D Donkey Kong. That's going to be their game of the year. Um, so right now I have one, two, three, four, five, six.
Yep.
Okay,
So you
cool.
have
I'm
the
perfect.
six.
I
Yeah,
just got
you got the. We just come down to who, whatever we think will win.
shit.
For me, looking at that list, there's a easy like 50-50 immediately.
Hit me.
So for me, it's Metroid has is in that shout, Split Fiction and Monster Hunter Wilds. They are the 50-50 split for me.
I'm gonna go with Split Fiction.
Okay.
I know that's a me thing for sure. I know that's letting my heart influence my brain a little bit there. But I do think, like, even if you just look purely at critical acclaim, it is the best reviewed game of 2025 so far.
Mm-hmm.
I know that doesn't necessarily mean anything because, if I'm not mistaken, Metaphor was the best reviewed game of 2024. I think it was reviewed a little bit better than Astra, if I'm not mistaken. And then in 2023, well, no, Baldur's Gate 3 was the most well reviewed game for sure. And then 2022 Elden Ring was the most well reviewed game. And 2021 It Takes Two was the most. Yeah. So I'm going Split Fiction.
Metroid.
Ooh, Metroid.
I think Metroid because you got to remember it. Like it's going to be coming out, right? The Switch 2. There's no chance in hell that gets delayed. They're not going to want to like push that back. They're going to want to considering because they entered the Switch entered the market later than everybody else,
Hmm.
so they're going to want to enter the market earlier in quotation marks before the other generations then begin because it gives them that leniency and that kind of just yeah well we're a little bit older than them blah 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 and I think people are yearning for something like Metroid to come back. All the Nintendo fans, like it's been a decently long time since they got a new release. If there's going to be anything that shows off like day and date that we know exists is my point. It would be that from a gameplay perspective. I don't
But
I don't know about like Mario Kart being able
you
to
gotta
do that.
keep in mind though, it was developed for the original Switch.
I mean, but you think about like you like so was The Last of Us, the first Last of Us game, and they moved that forward with the remaster and stuff like that. And GTA 5 was developed for the 360, and it still held up legs, and it doesn't feel bad to play. I think people need to understand that this isn't like a PS1, PS2. leap anymore. The technology doesn't do that. Nah,
It's not gonna be
it's not
that.
going to be
But
that
I
big of a
think
leap. It's a big leap for Switch. Don't get me wrong.
yes.
The Switch One is outdated as shit. Don't get me wrong, but that like I don't see Nintendo fumbling like they did with Pokemon, with how it played and stuff like that. With that whatever that Pokemon game was that came out kind of rough. I don't see them doing that with Metroid.
I honestly think this is going to be the largest generational leap we've seen since PS2 to PS3. Because like PS3 to PS4 was pretty impressive. PS4 to PS5 was like whatever.
Are you
You know what I
talking
mean? So
Switch? Are
it's
you talking Switch wise or like in general as like the actual generation, like PlayStation as well? Whenever
yeah,
they.
everything. And in terms of like I'm saying from PS2 to PS3 was the last time it was like holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Because PS3 to PS4 was it's like yeah, cool. PS4 to PS5 was like yeah, cool. This is going to be the first time I think we do have a oh shit moment where it's like oh, games actually can run on this thing now.
Mm,
Like real games, like big games.
yeah, yeah. It all depends. But then it's kind of that thing because for me it's that thing of like, well, they should have been able to do that from the get go. It shouldn't have
Oh, I
taken them this
agree.
long. Like and that's where that like pessimism comes from, kind of thing. So like it's equally part a black eye and equally part like a compliment.
Mhm.
But yeah, clearly I don't hate Nintendo enough. Like I could see them sweeping with Metroid with whatever else
Well,
comes up.
you got Metroid locked in. I got Split Fiction. My top five outside of my game of the year is Kingdom Come, Death Stranding 2, Expedition 33, Doom the Dark Ages, and Monster Hunter Wilds. Your game of the year is Metroid, with your top five outside looking in being Kingdom Come 2, Split Fiction, Death Stranding 2, Monster Hunter Wilds, and Expedition 33. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
My people, those are our predictions. You know, I got a prediction on top of our predictions. We got to fucking get out of here, taking up 800 hours. But um, my prediction is this is going to be the most wrong we've ever been. Where usually I think we have a good grasp of it, marketing windows are shortening up to the point where I don't even think that like there's going to be a lot of games in our top five that are absolutely not going to be there.
And I hope that is the case
Oh yeah.
because it's my preferred. Like I hate long, drawn out like dev cycles for games. Like 6 to 12 months, get it out.
Yeah.
Just keep it under wraps, do what you need to do, and then boom. Like yeah. So
I
I do
think
hope that we see a bunch of titles that like even from Nintendo and stuff like get people because like I'm not a Nintendo person. Get people even more excited. Nintendo like
yeah.
throw out a be like yeah here's a Mario game as well. Like fucking spoil them fans. Like they've been waiting long enough to be able to game properly.
I think there will be a game of the year contender revealed at the Nintendo Direct and the Xbox Showcase. That's going to be my bold prediction right here.
Mm.
PlayStation, I have no idea what the fuck they do anymore, but we got at least two more really big showcases this year. And I guess PlayStation's just who the fuck knows? I don't even know if they do showcases anymore. Incredible. Anywho, 70, almost 80 million consoles sold. Haven't done a showcase in like 5 years. They did one in 2023 that was horrible, but the last good showcase is 2021. Anywho, it doesn't matter. That's our prediction. I hope you enjoy.
Yep.
Appreciate you guys. See you soon. Goodbye.
See you later.